9BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
A hearty good afternoon to you as we welcome you on into the Sports Bar, Danger and Battaglia. Glad to be with you this afternoon to talk some sports in the Flower City. Thanks for listening at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey, iHeartRadio, or TuneIn apps. You can even watch the Sports Bar. We're streaming live on Twitch at The Fan Rochester, and, of course, our YouTube channel is live as well at The Fan Rochester. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
Good afternoon, buddy.
How are you?
I'm well.
Fueled by breakfast pizza. You know, in our building, there's not a lot of problems that can't be solved without throwing some pizza at it. You know, if the energy is down, sluggish coming into the new year, some breakfast pizza, fuel for success.
I had some discipline, buddy. I didn't touch it.
Ugh.
It smelled great. It looks great up in the kitchen. I'm good.
The vultures were up there. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm one of them. I'm circling the carcass, just looking in shame and like, when can I grab another piece? When can I grab a little square? All right. Yeah, fueled by breakfast pizza today in the Sports Bar.
It won't make it past the show.
One of us is going to be happy today. One of us is going to be angry. I'm going to be the happy one today. I feel like you're going to be angry because you didn't have the breakfast pizza.
I'm being accused of being the Grinch here because I'm painting a picture that I could see the Bills getting waxed this week.
Tell me.
The warning signs have been there, Danger. Like, teams can run the ball. The Bills are down in the secondary.
Do you have any recency bias about this defense? Knowing that down the stretch here, the final few games, that they tightened up a little bit?
Well, sure. What are the quarterbacks they face down the stretch, though? I don't know.
Second half of the New England game.
Yeah.
The Eagles game. I mean, there's... I don't want to even mention the Jets because that was a preseason game. The Browns, it's Shador, sure.
You got Burrow to turn it over a couple times in the fourth quarter. That paved a way.
Yeah, you need the turnovers. That's really what it comes down to. Like the Bills going into this season had that amazing streak where they won the turnover battle and didn't lose. When they win the turnover battle, they don't lose. And that goes for a lot of teams.
Well, it's funny. Like, you and I, for so many years, did high school television, right? High school football. And, like, we talked to the coaches. Hey, what do you got to do? Take away, give away. Can you give you something else? Because that's true of 100% of the games. But in this case, Danger, is it really just kind of that simple? If the Bills win that, if they get a couple Lawrence takeaways and they don't turn it over and vice versa, that tells the story, right? Everything else, yeah.
It's everything. It's your ability to take the ball away on defense and your ability to protect the ball on offense. It's everything.
So why not just go balls to the wall on defense? And we've seen this from McDermott and Babbage where they're being more aggressive. Talk about that Cincinnati game. That was a corner blitz with Christian Benford coming in. We saw Dorian Williams coming up the middle on poor sap there, Brady Cook for the Jets. I mean, if you're more aggressive, I'm okay if one goes out the door. Like, that's going to be the chance you're going to have to take here. What I'm not okay with is, hey, it's a 10-play, 70-yard drive that took 7:50 off the clock. The Bills will lose that game.
Can't get off the field. You got to get off the field on third down. I mean, that was also something that through the course of the season became very apparent that this team struggled getting off the field on third down. Got to get off the field, those long, sustained drives. I mean, you need Josh Allen on the field. It's your best chance of winning is having that offense do to them what teams want to do to the Bills, which is keep the offense on the sideline. It's going to be fun. Yesterday had me feeling as if the Jags were being disrespected with the line. That line that favored the Bills ever so slightly was very disrespectful to a team that you could argue right now is playing some of the, if not the best football in the NFL. A quarterback who's playing better than the reigning MVP. A defense that's been better at taking the ball away than the Buffalo Bills. There are a lot of things working against the Bills going into Sunday, but I think we've said this all year. If you've got 17, you've got a chance.
About those lines, 2 lines moved, okay? And one of them was Buffalo. So this time yesterday, it's only a half point. Who cares, right? Well, it was Bills by 1.5. Now it's Bills -1. So there's been money going in on Jacksonville. But that stat, and this goes against my fear of, this is going to go bad for Buffalo. In the last 22 3 versus 6 matchups, the 6 has gone 17-5 against the spread. So if it's a 1-point game, it's almost like Vegas is saying, here, go bet your money on Jacksonville.
Right.
The other one, I'm pleased to report to you, Danger.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, the Packers and Bears are now a pick 'em.
Yeah. Some books have the Packers favored. Some books have the Bears favored. That stat that you shared, the other stat that you shared yesterday about teams, courtesy of our buddy PJ Glasser, teams that missed the postseason the previous year being favored in their first year back, being what, like
1 in 16.
Yeah, that's rough.
1 in 16.
It goes beyond a trend. That's like, okay, that's almost a certainty.
That's why for the Patriot fans, you're feeling really good, right? Oh, we got a West Coast team where like the Chargers are banged up at tackle. We've got this one. Well, history says otherwise.
Yeah. We're going to talk plenty of Bills, Jags. Matt Perino, the Syracuse Post-Standard, the Shout podcast, our guest every Tuesday, right around 3:30. We'll get Perino on with us. We'll get a recap of Week 18, and we'll look ahead to Sunday's matchup in Jacksonville.
Yeah, it's Bills players off today. Tomorrow is going to be a walkthrough, so we'll get Matt's thoughts on, all right, the corner situation in Buffalo. Is he hearing anything about the kicker? I would think by the time we're off the air here today, Danger, when you get right around 4 or 5, somewhere around there, the NFL is going to put out their list of, okay, players that came in for a tryout. The kicking tryouts today in Buffalo. Who is on this list? We'll talk to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard Shout podcast, coming up at the bottom of the hour. If you're a Bills fan, you don't want to miss it.
And also today for the Buffalo Bills, the addition of Daryl Porter Jr. to the Bills practice squad, which I guess doesn't really speak highly of the ability of Max Hairston to get on the field here in the next couple of weeks.
That's right. So would you elevate Porter Jr. right off the street? I mean, anything you're doing right now comes with risk.
Sure. And Porter with some familiarity before he was with the Steelers this year, spent the offseason with the Bills. So we'll ask Perino about that as well. Certainly some injuries to worry about here with kicker, with corner. We didn't exit Week 18 completely unscathed against the Jets, and now you have that to worry about. Matt Perino stopping by the sports bar here in about 20 minutes or so. We will also be joined today, as we are every Tuesday, by Amerks head coach Mike Leone in the 4 o'clock hour.
Amerks tomorrow night in Syracuse. They are in Laval on Friday. Kind of a sluggish start over the holidays, losing in Cleveland, giving up goals in Toronto. But again, more divisional opponents on the horizon here. And again, the team back home this Friday night. We'll talk to Michael Leone, Amerks head coach, at 4:25. We'll also have our RIT coach, Matt Thomas, end of the show today. They split with Penn State. Penn State, a Frozen Four team last year, ranked number 8. The Tigers knocked them off. Now you go to the conference portion of the schedule. Robert Morris coming in. Can the Tigers start accumulating points and making sure that they're a home playoff team? It's not too soon to talk about this, is it? We'll ask the coach that coming up at the end of the show.
One of our fantasy experts, also Bills Mafia, NFL Network's Michael F. Florio, stopping by this afternoon. We'll talk some Buffalo Bills and Jacksonville Jaguars with Florio as well. You can join us anytime this afternoon on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. That's 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub at 135 West Commercial Street in East Rochester. GoodSmokeBBQ.com.
You know, people think that, you know, TV is just easy. Maybe for some it comes easy, but I'm fascinated by this trend that Tom Brady has started, where Brady, hey, I'll take the Raider job, but I'm not leaving the Fox job. The Raiders didn't have any leverage. That's what it comes down to sometimes. You ask for things in a negotiation. Hey, I'll come over as a consultant, whatever the hell his title is, but it sounds like Brady has some pull. If Tom Brady was really in and rebuilding the Raiders, I would think you would want to be around the facility and want to be doing everything you can. it's easy to float in and float out. That's why ultimately I'm not taking the Raiders seriously. I don't think that structure kind of works. Which leads me to these two other situations, one team in the division and one team that just blew everybody out. Which one do you want to start with? I guess it doesn't matter. You have the Dolphins, who are toying with the idea of bringing Troy Aikman in. Now, Troy Aikman, hey, he's smart. He's accomplished. You would want his voice. But he would keep his ESPN gig? Even further beyond that, talking about team president Matt Ryan, the Atlanta Falcons.
Sure.
That would satisfy that fan base down there. That might make sense. But this idea that Matt Ryan would spend his weekends as a CBS analyst, what are we doing here, Danger? You have been a manager. I think there's something to be said that on game day or when you're traveling, just you got to be around and take notes and observe.
So I have a few thoughts. I think there's a difference between what a guy like Tom Brady does for the Raiders and what Matt Ryan is going to be asked to do for the Falcons. And I also look at a guy like John Lynch, a former player, who's had success with San Francisco and been in that position of kind of like GM / football president, whatever his title is. I think he's just the GM of the Niners, but they've had success while he's been there, and they've got a good thing going with he and with Shanahan. Brady, to me, his role with the Raiders is he's a name that you can just add some credibility to an otherwise dysfunctional organization, right? Mark Davis is somebody that nobody takes seriously. But how much say and how much input does a minority partner have in the football decisions? It'd be like Brandon Beane asking Josie Altidore what he thinks he should do at the draft this year. That doesn't make any sense. And that's really the same role, the difference being one played quarterback in the NFL and was the best to do it for a long time, and one played professional soccer, right? One has experience, one doesn't, but their roles are the same. They're minority partners. Ultimately, it's not their decision. It's the owner's decision. It's still the owner who's calling the shots. Ryan's proposed role here, this new role that they're opening up in Atlanta, that he's going to interview for either Thursday or Friday, to me feels closer to the John Lynch role than the Tom Brady role. And I don't believe the Raiders when they say Tom Brady's going to be involved in that. Like, Tom Brady's going to be as involved as Tom Brady wants to be. And I don't think Tom Brady really wants to be involved. I think he views the Raiders as an investment. I'm going to invest some money. I'm going to make some money off of this. But the lift is minimal. I still have my job. I'm getting paid way handsomely by Fox to do this job. And I think the reluctance for them to want to let go of that job is they realize, like, it's work, it's prep. They have to, but these guys have always studied film. They've always been able to analyze and diagnose what they're seeing on the field. So it's almost second nature for a Matt Ryan, a Tom Brady, a Troy Aikman to do what they do in the booth or in the studio. Now, the report from Ryan is that he would actually walk away from his studio analyst role if he got the job in Atlanta. So there wouldn't be any sort of conflict of interest there if he got that job. And there's also a report that the 49ers director of scouting and football operations, Josh Williams, has been requested to interview for that same role. So it's not a lock that Ryan gets that role. I think you're right. It would satiate a fan base that's probably very frustrated at the direction of the team. And then there's the Kirk Cousins report out of Atlanta today too, where he restructured his deal in a way that makes it a little bit more a little bit more palatable for the Falcons to be able to cut him in March and designate him as a post-June 1st. But when you're looking at all of these opportunities that are out there, whether you're talking about Brady as a minority partner or Aikman or Ryan stepping into this role, I don't think you can put them all in the same bubble. I think they're very individual. Individually, I think they're very different responsibilities and roles. Like, Aikman's job would be the toughest, in my opinion. If Aikman were to go to Miami and be tasked with trying to turn that around or work with Mike McDaniel to find what their quarterback is who's their quarterback going to be and how's that going to look? I mean, one day after Tua saying it would be dope to get a second chance, you have Mike McDaniel saying, yeah, well, maybe we'll have him back and he'll get a second chance, but it'll be a competition. Okay. Is that something that can be repaired? Do you need an intermediary like an Aikman to come into there and to kind of be the bridge between the coach and the quarterback, or an evaluator for who the next quarterback of that job feels the most challenging. There's a lot of really good pieces in Atlanta. So Matt Ryan going in there, all you have to do is don't do what Fontenot did. Fontenot was a mess. Fontenot in the draft drafted some good pieces. Some of them won't be there, but some of those pieces are worth looking at building around.
He drafted like a fantasy football team
Right.
is what he did. And by the way, the Falcons giving away their first-round pick this year, and it's going to be the Rams selecting in that spot.
Disgusting.
Yeah, you're right on the fact that they're not similar. The Brady thing to me, and you called it an investment. Well, if it really is an investment, he's got sway on raising the level of that investment. To me, it feels like if you had to go over a list of franchises in sports that are sleeping giants. In danger, I would bring you back to the year 2008, 09. The Dodgers were bankrupt. The Dodgers, like the Giants fan, was beat the snot out of. I mean, it was a place you didn't want to go, and the new owners came in, and wow, what a turnaround. It is the model on how to build something. I don't think Mark Davis is the guy to lead that. I don't think he has the capacity, but the Raiders are a brand. And Vegas is a brand. And if they could either figure it out, how many Raider fans would kind of rise up? They're all kind of dormant right now.
Well, I think that's why you throw his name around as often as you do, because the Raiders know our owner is a buffoon. Our ownership they're a clown show. Look at all of the things that they've done. Look at all the changes that they've made. Look at all the coaches that they're still paying. I mean, I said it tongue-in-cheek, like, bring back Gruden. At least you're getting something for the money that you're paying him to not coach. They are paying him still to not coach. Bring him back, and at least you're getting something of value. I know that that's not likely to happen, but I think you have to throw Tom Brady's name out there so that the fan base can at least feel like something is happening. But would it shock you if Brady really wasn't as involved as they're making it out to be?
I don't think he is.
Right.
I don't think he is.
And if he is, he's not very good, right? Because Pete Carroll, you could say, well, that was a good idea. But was it a good idea to hire a guy that would immediately becomes the oldest coach in the NFL and didn't have success in his last few years?
Well, if
in
you're
Seattle?
like, you can be the silent partner. There's nothing wrong with that. You made the money, you made the purchase, you do whatever you want to do. But the fact that they're trotting him out there, that he's involved. Okay, now your name is on this.
Right.
And so if it's Mendoza that you're working your way back, you have the luxury of like, oh my gosh, we're going to be able to draft this kid. How do we make what does success look like here? Who is the coach and the coordinator we should hire? Or do we hire the head coach that we don't have to worry about the offensive coordinator? He's a great play caller.
So I saw this cross my feed out of New Orleans, and I thought it was interesting. Take it for what it's worth. There's a former quarterback of the Raiders that would consider going back to the Raiders. And when you talk about how you build this, if you're the Raiders, this actually makes some sense to me. What if Derek Carr went back to the Raiders? Derek Carr, who retired a Saint, who's still young. I don't have his exact age in front of me, but he still had some years to go. Shoulder was tore up, had the surgery. But he had mentioned publicly that he would consider going back. There's one guy that he would go back to the Raiders for, and that's Clint Kubiak. Now, is Clint Kubiak, by the way, how many Kubiaks, I feel like there's a lot of Kubiaks and Schottenheimers, and the nepotism in the NFL has always been out of control. Anyways, Clint Kubiak to the Raiders, I think, opens the possibility of bringing in Derek Carr as that mentor or as that bridge or as that veteran presence around, you would assume right now, Mendoza, and getting him acclimated to the NFL. Plus, you have an offensive-minded, if he's not the head coach, an offensive-minded coordinator at least. If you saw those dominoes, if you're Tom Brady and you did something like that, I'd be like, okay, that at least makes some sense. Bringing in Pete Carroll to try and relive the magic that he never had with Geno Smith in Seattle and having that success didn't make any sense.
No, at least they wised up and figured, okay, we can't have Pete Carroll mentoring. There was one thing I heard, and by the way, it is BetMGM tonight at 6:00 as we are learning our new programming here on 95.7 The Fan Rochester. And I'm listening last night. And it's big noisy noise there, big noise, and
Brad Evans,
yeah, and Pat Boyle, and they're talking about the Raiders opening, and they're like, they had me. They're like, okay, there are two guys that make sense. Okay, one, they point to a coordinator who's going to get a lot of interviews. But ultimately, I don't think he gets a job because, well, he sued the NFL. That's Brian Flores. And they go over the connection that, hey, if Tom Brady actually defected to the Dolphins, they would have been working together in Miami. So there is some sort of relationship that they agreed. Okay, maybe Flores gets an interview. The other one, I almost drove off the road. Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady. And they're laying out the reasons, Danger, and I'm thinking, this is nonsense. But then you realize, wait a second, they actually did their homework. If you go over the Bills' stats here, yes, it's Josh Allen, but look at this rushing attack, and you've got Ashton Genty.
Sure.
And then, hey, you're putting up these numbers offensively. Yes, you have Josh Allen, but look at these wide receivers that Josh Allen has to work with. Now, look at what the Raiders have to work with at wide receiver. Joe Brady can go in and say, I can make this work here. Like, wow. Like, if we said today, hey, Joe Brady left, people would be like, okay, yeah, well, we can go get Dable. But others may view him differently here.
Yeah, that's funny. We haven't mentioned Joe Brady as a candidate for any of these jobs yet because the Bills are still playing, and the usual suspects have kind of popped up. And Flores is interesting. You mentioned him with connection to the Raiders. He is actually right now the early betting favorite to become the next head coach of the Raiders. I could see Flores as a defensive coordinator somewhere other than Minnesota. I don't know that I see Flores succeeding as a head coach.
The lateral move for what, though?
Dallas. I'd say Dallas. Dallas now with the opening.
I would say, but does Dallas ever move and do things they're supposed to? No, they move like a slug.
No, you're right. But Eberflus is out. It was a mercy killing. They got rid of Eberflus, relieved him of his duties. So Dallas is looking for a defensive coordinator. The Commanders are also looking for a defensive coordinator. They move off of Cliff Kingsbury and their defensive coordinator, Joe Witt. So the scapegoat game happens in D.C. where Quinn remains, but his coordinators are out just 1 year after making the NFC Championship game. Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph is going to be interviewing with the Raiders, with the Cardinals, with the Giants, and with the Titans all this week. And we also know the Titans are scheduled to interview Lou Anarumo tomorrow. The Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy on Thursday. And then this weekend interviews with Kevin Stefanski and Raheem Morris. The coaching carousel is alive. It is active. It is in motion.
Not our problem.
Not our problem. Not our problem. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars to worry about. And to help us preview and break down this matchup, Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard and the Shout podcast. Our guest next on the Fan Rochester.
Hometown Sports Talk.
Bills coverage that goes deeper, Sabres reality checks, and all the Rochester Ramworks action. This is The Fan Rochester. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills on the practice field tomorrow. Today, the off day, as typically is on a Tuesday. The wild card, 1 o'clock Sunday. Bills head coach Sean McDermott on those Jaguars.
They do a great job of keeping you off balance. They got weapons in the backfield. They got weapons on the perimeter of their offense. They do a great job with the quarterback and moving the pocket. They run quite a bit of no huddle. Reminds me of early on when Goff was with Sean McVay. That's kind of where Coach comes from.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, and the Shout podcast to talk some Bills football coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Tonight we got Sabres hockey, the team looking to start another winning streak this after the loss to Columbus. Vancouver is the opponent. Our coverage will begin at 7 here on The Fan. Emirates head coach Mike Leone will join us next hour. Syracuse basketball tonight playing at Georgia Tech. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Matt Prater, he's more day-to-day, which is a good sign, but we're still going to more than likely bring some kickers in for a workout, kind of work with two plans, one where he's able to go come Sunday and one where he's perhaps not able to go.
Special teams, one of the questions going into Sunday's wild card matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars as we welcome in Matt Perino covering the Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. The Prater injury is less than ideal. The Max Hairston injury is less than ideal. Aside from that, Matt, what can you tell us about the health of the Buffalo Bills heading into wild card weekend? Welcome back into the Sports Bar, bud. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you guys. I think the two big ones going into the week were probably Jordan Poyer and Daquan Jones. And Sean said yesterday that both of those guys are improving. I'd imagine Poyer is probably the closer of the two. And I think luckily for the Bills, if you don't have Daquan Jones, you've gotten so much out of your rookie tackles over the last 3 weeks. I mean, I think TJ Sanders has really started to come on and play really good football, which is something that they, when Ed Oliver went down for the year in Carolina, like that was one of the things that everybody was talking about and eyeing. It was like when TJ Sanders gets back from injury, he's going to have to assume a larger role. And down the stretch, he really has. And I'm talking about more than just that sack he had this last week. I thought against the Eagles, physically against that offensive line on the interior, one of the better groups in the league. Like he stood toe-to-toe, made some big plays in that game. And I think that has to have you excited. They're going to need his pass rush this week against Jacksonville. And the other thing with Daquan Jones is even, he's been dealing with this calf injury on and off since the Atlanta game when it happened in warmups. He's an older player, and I just don't know if he's given you the level of play that you've come to expect out of him. So if you think about the two rookies, you have Ogunjobi, who can play 30 to 40% of the snaps. Fedarian Mathis, who has been kind of a revelation over the last month as well. And then you have Jordan Phillips, who you can make the argument outside of Deion Walker that Jordan Phillips has been the most consistent tackle all season. So those two are the big names. The thing that worries me about Prater is, and why I think the Bills are aggressively bringing in tryouts today, is even if he gets to a place where he's close, do you want to take that chance if you get into the game and that quad isn't 100% and now he maybe tweaks it on a kick and you need to make a 40-yard field goal late in the game? And I know there aren't great options on the free agent market either. It's a really bad situation to be in, and I'd almost say that that's worse than the Hairston situation only because of how well Tre'Davious White's been playing.
Yeah, so are we looking at Dane Jackson then getting elevated, or is there another option here on the practice squad? What do you do at corner 3, Matt?
Yeah, it's most likely Dane Jackson. He's played in the playoffs for them before, albeit not very well, right? Like that's been the big fear with having to go back to him. And when he's been on the field this season, not a lot of defensive snaps, but it hasn't looked great. He didn't have a super strong training camp. And actually, that's where Dane Jackson really shines usually. Like I've watched him out at St. John Fisher multiple years, and he's been ultra competitive. And that was when this wide receiver room was better. And it just hasn't been a good year. And you got to wonder, this is a former day 3 pick that goes on to sign a nice contract with Carolina, only makes it a year, didn't finish out the year as a starter, and you come back on a, got to kind of compete for a roster spot here in Buffalo. You don't get that roster spot, and you spend the season on the practice squad. Like, confidence might be an issue right now for Dane Jackson. And to be honest with you, I want to chat with him this week to kind of check in on him. He's one of, pound for pound, he's one of my favorite players that I've covered in my entire time. Always super approachable, great attitude, and that whole situation with DeMar Hamlin back a couple of years ago. Remember, Dane Jackson and him are super close friends, and the accessibility and the openness with which he talked about everything. Dane Jackson's as good of a guy as you're going to find. But if you find yourself in a spot where you need him on the field, you need him to produce. And so I think that's going to be something where if either of those guys go down on the road against Jacksonville, Benford, or Tre'Davious White, the Bills have significant questions at the depth cornerback spot.
Matt, how surprised were you to see Dalton Kincaid back on the field in what was essentially a meaningless game there as the stadium closed down there in Week 18 and the Bills took care of business against the Jets? Kincaid out there getting some reps, even though we know that knee has been an issue through the course of the season.
Of all the things that fans took issue with from Sean McDermott's, plan in that finale, the Dalton Kincaid move was the one where I was probably most in lockstep with some of them. Like, I didn't really understand why you're risking a player who has had knee issues now dating back over a calendar year. It's something that's nagged him again this year. It's kept him out of really important games. I mean, if you can't go against Philly with the division on the line still, and I know that New England went ultimately on to win their final 2 games, but it was still kind of in play to run him out there in that game. And I know he said shake off some rust, but I'm not necessarily worried about Dalton Kincaid's rust at this point. Like, an extra week of rest to me would be more conducive to having him closer to 100% when you really need him this week. Now, hindsight being 2020, he played 10 snaps. He got out of it by all intents and purposes healthy. And so from that perspective, it's fine. It's just, I think that there would have been a lot of uproar had Dalton Kincaid gotten banged up in that game. And I know it was only 10 plays, but, we've seen crazier things happen, on that many snaps.
Matt Perino, Shout Podcast, Syracuse Post-Standard, our guest. Matt, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about 17 because, sure, he went out there, had the one handoff there against the Jets, but when we last saw him against the Eagles, the team was shut out through 3 quarters. We saw Josh Allen go into the X-ray room right after the game. So where is he at right now? Or is it just a case of you suck this up, it's the playoffs?
Well, he is going to suck it up. I mean, there's not a tougher guy in the playoffs than Josh Allen. Like, I mean, this dude is he's played with some significant ailments over the course of his career, and I'd imagine this is going to be something that they're managing week to week, but it's win or go home. So I think that being able to take off week 18 was huge for him. And I know somebody put out a video of him after the game walking up the tunnel, which, that's one of the things about Highmark Stadium. That tunnel is a significant incline. And so if you're dealing with any kind of injury, walking up that ramp is kind of a challenge. I can tell you firsthand with my foot injury a couple of weeks ago, like that was brutal. And so he had a little bit of a limp still. And I even noticed him having a little bit of a limp in the facility last week when we talked to him on Wednesday. So that's something that he's going to just have to navigate. But I do think about what he was able to do on 1 week before he tweaked it. He looked really good. He had that one running play against the Eagles where he was cutting on a dime and shifting and doing all the things that we are used to watching Josh Allen do. And then it was just when he tweaked it, that's when it kind of became more of a challenge. But he still finished the game, and he still ran off the field after the game, if you remember that video. So I don't anticipate it being something that's overly talked about, but it's definitely something to have on the radar here, in case it does get re-aggravated.
Matt, based on what we saw out of Brendan Cooks in Week 17, based on what we saw out of Gabe Davis, Keon Coleman last week, how do you navigate the wide receiver room going into Jacksonville? What do you think the play is for McDermott?
Well, I think Brandon Cooks is your wide receiver 1, which is a crazy place to land at for a guy that's been in town for, a month? Yeah. Like a little over a month. But, I mean, hearing Joe Brady talk about him yesterday even, continues to solidify the impact that he's made. And, I think you can make an argument that his game in Philadelphia was probably, you could put that up against any single performance from Amari Cooper last year. And I thought there were a couple that Cooper had that were maybe didn't blow you away on the stat sheet, but I remember that Chiefs game, if you go back and watch that, he made a couple of plays that were huge for the offense. And I felt like Cooks felt that way this past week. And so I think having him in the building is important. I think getting Gabe Davis back, knowing what he can do in the playoffs and how good he looked on Sunday, has to have you excited. Those two guys got to be on the field. Shavers is going to be a big part of things. He's arguably their best blocker now, which is something considering Gabe Davis is in that room. And then beyond that, it's obviously Khalil Shakir, and then it is the conundrum of Josh Palmer and Keon Coleman. I think Keon Coleman actually has more upside as a player. I think he can make more plays. I think he gives you more. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out that Josh Palmer has been dealing with his ankle foot issue, and maybe that is something that's hampered him. He hasn't looked like the same player since Atlanta. And he didn't do a whole lot before that, but you remember that game. I mean, it looked like he was on his way to breaking out a little bit, and since he's been back, he's been absolutely invisible. And I think the Bills have to really consider maybe shutting him down this week and going with Coleman and those other four guys. And then, they can bring up McCole Hardman to return kicks, but we learned what they think about him a couple weeks ago when he had the one punt return, and then they ended up putting Khalil Shakir in late in the game. I think that experiment is kind of over. I think Sean McDermott, especially having to play on the road over the next couple of weeks, I don't think he's willing to risk a turnover on a punt for the kind of upside that he gives you as a returner. And I also think that Khalil Shakir, if he gets the ball in space, he's actually a really good punt returner. It's just that he's asked most of the time to play it as safe and as possible. He had one return, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe it was 3 weeks ago, where you really saw the run after catch ability that we see on offense when he has the ball in his hand. So I think you could do a lot worse than Shakir at punt returner, and it's going to be about ball security. Like, that is the storyline of the week. This is a team in Jacksonville that is number 3 in the NFL in turnover differential. They take it away second most in the NFL, and they don't make a lot of mistakes. Now, Trevor can make mistakes, though, so don't get that twisted. I know he's gone on this great run of 10 games, but when it hasn't gone well for them, it's been because he's taking sacks, he's putting the ball in jeopardy, he scrambles a lot, so maybe getting the ball on the turf that way is something the Bills can try to do. But this has been a defense that has been opportunistic over the last 6-7 games, turning the ball over at a greater clip than they were early in the season. They're probably going to need 1 or 2 on the road to pull this off this week.
Matt, what they can afford is, like in the New England game, fall behind 21-0. I'll ask you the question here that we don't really know the answer to, but I'm sure it's been asked in the locker room, like, in this game in particular, what will the Bills need to do here to get off to a start where they're not digging themselves out of a big hole at halftime?
I think you got to trust what you are, who you are, and the plan that you come up with. And I think oftentimes where Joe Brady's gotten into trouble, if we look at the whole season, is sometimes we see play calls that just seem completely out of character for what the Bills are. Like, I think you want to, on the road, if you get the ball first especially, you want to run downhill. You want to get the ball in James Cook's hands, and you could be creative with how you do that. It doesn't have to all be out of the I formation or running all of your traditional stuff. You can get him going in the passing game too, but I think James Cook has to touch the ball a lot, not only in this game, but every game in the playoffs. Like, he is your best player on offense, and that to me is like the major key. And I think you have to, on the road, it's a bit about a mentality, and the Bills have been talking about it the last couple of weeks, like, going back to the cliche of, you got to become road warriors, and that's real. Like, that's a psychology trick that I think that you can use to add a level of toughness on the road that you're going to need. And you're going to have to set that tone on both sides of the ball. I think you're going to have to hit Trevor Lawrence. You have Joey Bosa, who's coming off of a 2-week rest here. Greg Rousseau, 2-week rest. You need those guys to affect the game, and you need your blockers to affect the game on offense. And I'm looking at Deion Dawkins in this matchup against Josh Hines-Allen as one of my biggest keys to the game. it hasn't been a great season for Deion Dawkins. Not what we've traditionally seen from him. I went back on Pro Football Focus. Last year, he only had, I think, 3 games all season where he allowed 3 pressures in a game. That was the most he allowed in any game last season. This year, he has 3 where he's allowed 4 or more and 1 where he allowed 7. And these have been against some of the better pass rushing units. You think about Atlanta earlier in the season. You think about Houston when things went off the rails there a little bit. Joshua Hines-Allen is in that class of pass rusher. And I'm also looking at Joe Brady. Is this going to be a game where he can devise with Aaron Cromer a plan to give those tackles help when Josh Hines-Allen is, they did it in Cleveland. They took Myles Garrett out of the game, and I think they could probably put something together in that department as well. But you got to be able to get into the run game. You got to be able to get downhill with James Cook, and so those are a couple keys.
So a part of what Gene is saying here, too, I think with these slow starts is the defense kind of needing to adjust halftime and come out and play better in the second half. Are you buying into this defense being a little bit better here down the stretch, Matt? Because it feels like they're playing a little bit more aggressive, and we know that the pass defense isn't the problem. It's that ability to stop the run, and in this case, Travis Etienne.
Yeah, I think that they've also really leaned into some different personnel looks that have tapped into what we saw mid-season. Like, I go back to what we saw out of Michael Hoyt when him and Oliver were together for just that half against Carolina. And Hoyt was wrecking the game, and I think a lot of that had to do with how the Bills were deploying him in conjunction with how they were sending their DBs on certain packages, linebackers as well. They've unlocked a little something with Dorian Williams. He had a rep against Philadelphia a couple weeks ago where he completely blew up the right tackle and allowed the rusher, I can't remember who it was, Ogunjobi or somebody, to come in and lay a big hit on Jalen Hurts. And I think in this game, you're going to have to look at guys like Dorian Williams, Taron Johnson, Benford, who had that big performance with the pick 6 a couple of weeks ago against Cincinnati, to be effective rushers that I think is really flipped the script for this defense a little bit. And I just think their interior players are playing better against the run. Like, physically, I think that there's I know it gets kind of eye roll-esque when we start talking about gap integrity over and over and over again, but it's true. Like, if any one of those guys up front isn't doing their job, it puts the second-level guys in a bad spot. Oh, and Terrell Bernard was playing injured for most of the season, and now you've moved to a different direction. Even Joe Andreessen last week, I know it was the Jets, but it looked completely different. I mean, he looked healthy. He was firing to the ball, had a couple tackles for a loss in that game. They're going to have to do that. They're going to have to put the Jacksonville Jags in third and long. And I know at times this season the Bills haven't been good in that spot, but I don't think that they were the same creative rushing team that they've been over the last 6 to 8 games. And that's what you got Sean McDermott for. I mean, you got the best quarterback in the NFL. You need Sean McDermott to devise something against, at least for the last 10 games, another guy that's been playing like one of the best in the NFL in Lawrence.
Matt, it's crazy to think that with all the success the Bills have had in playoff wins, McDermott and Allen have yet to win on the road in the postseason. So Here's their opportunity. Would you agree that if they get this one, I mean, it's almost like, okay, we're over the hump here. I could see the ball rolling downfield here for the Bills here. Like, honestly, I could see this going one, like a lot of people. You win this game, who's to say you can't win 2 more on the road after that?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think this is a game where I was watching, I think it was an NFL Network clip, and they were going around the table with, ranking the teams, and I think all 3 or 4 of the analysts had the Jags as the best or the second best team in the AFC field. So, I mean, this is a media landscape that's really buying in on the Jags. And I think, if you end up having to go to New England the next week, I don't know how that – I don't think there's actually any way that you could go to New England, right, because they're the 2 seed?
Right. There's no New England next week. Correct.
So there'd be no New England. You got to hope for New England in the AFC title game, I guess, unless Houston can kind of go on a run, or the Chargers could go on a run. But yeah, I think they can. I think they can win games on the road against this field. That to me is the biggest thing. It's unproven quarterbacks in this playoff field outside of Josh Allen, and I think you think about the AFC playoffs over the last 6-7 years, the only quarterback that has had sustained success in the playoffs, other than Patrick Mahomes, has been Josh Allen. And the only guy he's really lost to is Mahomes. And obviously the one to Burrow, which was at home. Are all of their road playoff games? Oh, no, the one is against Houston, too. But I think the rest of them were against the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
They're not here anymore.
So let me ask a question that I know will satiate some fans. And I think, Matt, you and I and Gene all believe that there's nothing that can really happen that would put Sean McDermott's future with the Bills in jeopardy. But I know there are a lot of fans that are thinking to themselves, boy, Kevin Stefanski would sure be great for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. I mean, there's nothing to that, right? I mean, are we still in lockstep in believing that it doesn't matter what the outcome of this game is? Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, their futures are going to be tied with this organization for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, look, I want to start with the Stefanski idea, right? Like, I'm not convinced of that. I mean, he's a really good offensive coordinator, but he's been a really crappy head coach. And I know that he hasn't had a lot of success there, but I would imagine he had at least a voice in the room when they made that awful trade for Deshaun Watson. And I know probably most of it was Barry and the ownership group really pushed for it. But I heard a great interview from John Elway. He was on with Shannon Sharp, and he was talking back about the Josh Allen draft and why he didn't take him. And he said, the big thing for us was I like Josh Allen a lot, but the problem was I didn't have buy-in from the coaching staff. So he ultimately decided to draft Bradley Chubb and not draft the quarterback because he was worried about going against the grain and then forcing a coaching staff to then go and work with this quarterback that maybe they didn't all believe in. And so I think about this, and maybe the Haslams are just completely incompetent. That's definitely within the realm of possibility. Yeah. But I'd have to imagine that Kevin Stefanski had a seat at that table and was part of just this disastrous run in Cleveland. And he's a good offensive coordinator, but he hasn't been a very good head coach. And I think that's one of the things that gets lost. I know there hasn't been the kind of playoff success that fans want, and I know that if things end this weekend in Jacksonville, the conversation is at least going to really begin, I think. I think we can really begin the conversation if there might not be a better path forward for the Bills with Josh Allen. I don't know if they ultimately decide to make a change, and I also think the conversation will include whether that's the coach or whether that's the general manager and his ability or inability to be able to build the kind of roster that can go win a Super Bowl. So if they lose this weekend, I definitely think that it sets the stage for a very interesting offseason, but I ultimately don't think there's really any chance, like you said, that either of them are gone.
Matt, on a much, much lighter note, I must commend you on your fine acting ability. And my apologies. I was so late to the party. I taped it. I'm like, I'm going to get to this, whatever. Had no idea that you and Ryan Talbot were at the bar right in the opening scene of the Hallmark movie. Great job, buddy.
Thanks, man. I'm probably one and done. That was probably my acting debut.
You're straight out of Central Casting. You've got more roles in your future. You know it. I mean, I don't know how often the film crews are coming to Buffalo to shoot these massive, massive projects like the Hallmark Christmas movie for the Buffalo Bills, but you know you're going to get some run there. We're going to see your name on some credits in the future.
I mean, listen, my phone blew up so much, and the funny story about that is Ryan met the casting folks. I can't remember where he met them, but we brought him on the podcast. And they were kind of talking off to the side, and they're like, hey, man, we got this couple opportunities at the beginning of this scene if you guys want to come in and do it. So Ryan put this whole thing together. I had no idea what we were actually going to do. And we show up there, and they're like, yeah, here's all the Bills gear you gotta wear, and you're going to have to cheer your butts off. So I had to really channel, 2017 Matt at the bar in Vegas rooting for Andy Dalton to take the Bills to the playoffs for the first time in 17 years. And it wasn't very hard, and it was super fun. And you know what the coolest part is? My son's become a really huge Bills fan. And so when he saw the video, it was really, or the movie, it was really cool.
This is why I think Matt takes as many trips to Disney as possible. Maybe somebody's there scouting. We see Matt.
Breaking news, Danger. We
Tell
got
me.
some breaking news, buddy.
Tell me, when are you going?
Flights were super expensive for Jacksonville. Okay, so we got half price to fly direct into Orlando. So we might be popping over to Epcot.
Yeah.
Talbot's going with me, and he's never ridden Gardens of the Galaxy. So I don't know. Maybe we just pop into Epcot real quick
I think
on the way to Jacksonville.
That's a winning plan right there, a winning formula. It's a short drive.
2 hours, 4 minutes.
Yeah, it's a short drive.
Why not?
And that expressway, you can zip on that interstate. Man, you can fly on that interstate between Orlando and Jacksonville.
My wife is just thrilled that I'll be going for the second time within a year without her. She's thrilled.
What's coming up on the Shop Podcast this week that we can check out in advance of Sunday, Matt?
We are actually, it's a super busy weekend, obviously, playoffs starting. We're going to do a live show in town Friday night at the Genesee Airport location, 4600 Genesee Street, Wingnuts. We're going to do a shout live. We'll preview Jags, Bills, and then Ryan and I are heading down to Jacksonville. So it's going to be wall-to-wall coverage here all throughout the week.
I always appreciate the time, Matt. Safe travels. Enjoy yourself, bud.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks. The Guardians of the Galaxy ride is the one ride I've seen that has made my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is like if you put him next to like Joe Rogan physically, like he's kind of like that guy, bald head, built. And he got off the ride with my nephew. And I have never seen a human turn that shade of green. He was green. He couldn't hack it. It was a tough look for my guy after the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. So you have to experience it once. I get it. It's a lot of fun.
I don't. This is how long it's been since I've been there. Which park is it in?
That's in Epcot now.
Okay. Epcot.
Yeah, Epcot has that, and the Tron ride is the new ride at, I want to say at Magic Kingdom. And Epcot's done a bunch of stuff since even the last time I was there. But Guardians was still relatively new the last time we made a trip to Disney. And it was with my brother and sister-in-law, my nephew. And he did not. It got the best of him, Gino. Maybe it's our age. Maybe at this stage of our life. I mean, we're not like Perino. Perino's still got a lot of years in front of him, a lot of youth, straight out of Central Casting, as I mentioned. He can take Guardians of the Galaxy on multiple times. For me, yeah, I'm good. I think I'm okay. I don't want to suffer the same fate as my brother-in-law on that ride.
Yeah, but if you're going into Disney and you see like 3-4 dudes, kind of like. Aren't you?
What
like,
are you saying?
Yeah,
what are you saying?
I don't know. I'm not.
What are you saying?
You draw your own conclusions. You're like, wait a second, like, guys, where are the kids? Where's everything?
Well, you just don't like having fun. That's it. You don't want to see other dudes have fun. If you just saw Perino and Talbot, Bills guys, rolling up to Epcot, taking in rides by themselves without kids.
See, the funny thing,
you would judge negatively.
See, the Epcot, what they do with I'm cognizant of the wine and the food fest and everything else. So,
yeah, that's different though.
That's different. Well, that's the thing they pull you in and like, let's go do on the ride anyways. Well,
go drinking around the world. Love that. Love Perino stopping in before he makes the trip down to Florida for Sunday's game, and of course you can join. You'll have him on with us again next week. Win or lose, we will be talking Buffalo Bills at this time with Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, a conversation with Amerks head coach Mike Leone. We'll also check in with Michael F. Florio from NFL Network, all before happy hour at 5 o'clock. Time for your calls as well if you want to join us at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
Streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills back on the practice field tomorrow. Wild card, 1 o'clock Sunday. The line right now, Buffalo favored by 1. No Maxwell Harrison for this game. He's week to week with the ankle injury. Defensive coordinator Bobby Babich has confidence in Tre'Davious White.
I feel like he's playing pretty well right now. I feel like he feels like he is himself again, which is really important. You know, it's hard to play pro football when you don't feel like you're fully back, especially at that position. You know, he's got stuff he's got to improve on, but I do feel like he's kind of getting into a rhythm.
Pre-game coverage begins at 9 a.m. this Sunday here on The Fan. The Sabres host Vancouver tonight. Our coverage will begin at 7. Amerks head coach Mike Leone to join us later this hour. Syracuse basketball looking for their first win of the calendar year tonight. They play at Georgia Tech. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amerks. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
We are jammed up this afternoon in the sports bar. Lots of guests. If you missed Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Senators, we talk some Bills and Jags. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. Now just search out the sports bar. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. We'll have Michael F. Florio from NFL Network joining us before 5 o'clock. And as you mentioned in your update, Gino, Mike Leone, Amerks head coach, stopping by the sports bar here in about 15, 20 minutes.
So if you're going to go the route of we need an experienced head coach, and that's always kind of the debate, right? Do you bring in some coordinator, let them cut their teeth, and, hey, this guy has it, he's our guy, or are you bringing in somebody that's been there before? Which of these guys right now in this cycle would be the guy with experience? I could think of 3 names. Like you heard, we were talking about Flores earlier. Well, yeah, he was the head coach of the Dolphins when they were really bad, but they didn't have anything. So he's got that experience. Mike McCarthy is a name that I don't know if the Giants are going to actually interview him, but he's been rumored to be, looking for work. But this is interesting. Kevin Stefanski, just let go, apparently has already had a suitor.
Yeah, the Giants and Stefanski meeting tomorrow about the vacancy there for head coach.
So who would be the best guy with experience right now? Is it Stefanski? Do we?
So there's this thing that, and you've all noticed it. We've noticed it. We've talked about it. We make fun of it. It's almost as if to be a head coach in today's NFL, you've had to have a cup of coffee with Sean McVay at any point in your career. Just any Sean McVay reference on your resume gets you a conversation. But I think even more than that, you got to look like you just stepped off the cover of GQ magazine. I mean, like I think the days of like Mike McCarthy getting looks, yeah, he's probably more than qualified to be the next head coach of the New York Giants. But does he have the swagger and the confidence and the ability to connect with the locker room?
Yeah. Like appearance matters? Is that what you're saying? Like we're not going to have like big fat Bill Parcells anymore.
I mean, Andy Reid will be the last of a dying breed. If you want to look at it that way, Andy Reid, has won plenty of Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback, and he has the respect of everybody in the league, and he's the elder statesman now, right? But I think he is the last of a dying breed, because now when you look around the NFL, everybody's a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan clone. And, like I see Cliff Kingsbury get let go they mutually parted ways in Washington. I want to be factually accurate here.
Well, no, relieved of it. They didn't say relieved of
it
his
was
duties.
a mutual parting.
Okay.
It was a mutual parting. But that's a guy that I could see getting another shot as a head coach. I don't know that he deserves it, but he looks the part. He can speak the part. And can he connect with the locker room? Yeah, chances are he probably can. I think Stefanski's right on the borderline of that. I think Stefanski can. I think Stefanski is still a young enough guy who can do that. I as high as I was on the idea of Stefanski being released by the Browns yesterday, after hearing Perino talk about it, it's like, yeah, there is something to Stefanski being a part of the worst deal in NFL history. And even if his part was he wasn't vocal enough to prevent it from happening, he was a part of it. He had a say, or he didn't have a say, or he had a say and they ignored him, which shows that, okay, he's not alpha enough in a room full of, billionaire owners and GMs to say, no, this is a bad idea. Or maybe he was the guy that orchestrated it. Maybe he's the guy that said, I can't work with Baker Mayfield anymore. We need to move on. We need to find somebody better. Who can we get? That guy. We can get that guy. We don't know, right? We don't know who ordered the code red. But I do think when you're talking about candidates, Brian Flores fits the bill, I suppose. But I don't know that Brian Flores deserves another shot as a head coach. He didn't really win in Miami. If he's the guy that's rumored to be the guy, he's the favorite right now for Vegas. Okay. I mean, if I'm a Raider fan, I'm not excited about that.
No, I mean, look, don't grow up to be a defensive coordinator. That's really what this comes down to.
If Matt Nagy gets hired by the Titans, are you excited about that? Is anybody fired up about Matt Nagy? No. But if you got a guy that's young and upcoming, I would say, we were joking earlier about with the Raiders. If Clint Kubiak got a head coaching job, I think you would be more excited than you would be about Matt Nagy. I would be, at least, because I think there's an unknown to that. At least we know, okay, he's got a pedigree that's different than what Matt Nagy has.
I would not be excited whatsoever about Matt Nagy.
Right.
No.
So I think that the NFL certainly has a type, and that type is either you've had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay or you just took your foot off of the front cover of GQ magazine because you're forward-facing and you're the guy that represents this organization. There's only 32 of them. I don't know if you've heard that or not. There are only 32 of these jobs. And that also allows you to have conversations like we're having about John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin at the end of the season or Sean McDermott. I mean, honestly, these are guys that aren't going to fit that mold.
Until the Bills get this done. Like that report from Jeremy Fowler that sources no one. It's just speculation, clickbait nonsense. Hey, there is no one that is saying that his job is in jeopardy, but when you just kind of look at everything, is it better moving forward? When you heard Matt Perino, if the Bills lose to Jacksonville, we'll mourn the Bills for one day. And then what's next?
Oh, Gino, what does the world look like on Monday if they lose to Jacksonville? If they lose in a way that we've seen the Bills, typically when they lose, it's in spectacular fashion.
Right. So it'll be blame assessment. Mm-hmm. And McDermott will certainly get blame. And I'll tell you who will get blame. For the first time, Brandon Beane will get a big pie. Because especially if it's Jacoby Myers, a guy you could have traded for and you didn't. There's one different element this time around. That's Pete Guelli. Pete Guelli was not in this position of power. He was here, but now he's been 12 months. Now he is the guy in the ear of Terry Pegula. What does Pete Guelli think? Pete Guelli, he's been on other places.
I get it. And man, I want to believe that his role is, I don't want to use the term limited as a pejorative, but it feels like it's limited to the business element of Pegula Sports and Entertainment, the stadium, and making sure that everything goes right with that and making sure that things are going in the right direction and that we are, more than anything, making money, right? Making as much money as we can possibly make as an organization for the Sabres and the Bills.
Ultimately, that's why when we say, hey, nothing's going to change, just look at the Sabres. That was an organization that was desperately screaming for change. And it
took a long time.
That Kevin Adams exit was weird, was it not?
It took a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. When I see the news of Stefanski, if you're a Giants fan, I imagine you're probably excited about that. Hey, he's a good offensive mind. Can he work with Jackson Dart? Can he assemble a staff? Was he a product of a dysfunctional organization, or was he a bad head coach? Like Matt Perino was saying, look, he was there in Cleveland and he won Coach of the Year twice, but he was also a bad head coach. And what does Coach of the Year mean? It means, congratulations, you exceeded expectations. We thought your team was going to be terrible, and you were actually pretty good. And the 2 years that he won it with Cleveland, he did. But it's a guy that, let's not forget, he coached the Browns, to beat the Steelers in the postseason, to get a postseason win over the Steelers. Everything went sideways when Baker Mayfield left. That to me is when Stefanski lost his shine there, and whoever ordered the code red, his hands aren't clean of that. He can't distance himself so much to say I had nothing to do with us making the worst deal.
He's going to get another chance. I don't know if it's this year. I think if he goes to an organization that knows what they're doing.
No, I think I said it yesterday, and I'll believe this. I think Stefanski will get to pick where he wants to go next. I think he's going to have multiple chances as soon as next season to be a head coach in the NFL.
I don't want to bury what you said at the beginning, though. I'm going to paraphrase. The fat head coach in the NFL is no longer a
dying
thing.
Breed, man.
Brian Daboll, he maybe knew where things were headed. The guy lost a lot of weight this year.
Didn't help. Weight aside, I'm not being fattest here, I swear. It's a swagger. It's a confidence. If you carry yourself with that, and I think Andy Reid has done that in Kansas City, it helps that you have one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback ever, in Patrick Mahomes. But I think he's got a personality that I think people can buy in on. Daboll came off like he just came off like a jerk. He didn't really come off to me, him belittling his players or being overly animated on the sideline. Like all of that stuff to me doesn't feel like what a head coach in the NFL in 2025 should be. Sirianni is the kind of guy, McVay, Shanahan, Ben Johnson, Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell, these have now become the guys that I think the NFL, even in Dallas, Jerry got one, and Schottenheimer. Hey, Schottenheimer, there's some nepotism there, but at least Schottenheimer can carry himself with a confidence and a little bit of swagger.
Well, I didn't even know fatism is a word. Is that
fattest?
Yeah. I know ageism is a word, and I don't think Pete Carroll gets another crack at it.
No.
He might go coach in college, but the idea that are you going to, ultimately, there will be something you'll read online tonight or wherever, somebody speculating about Bill Belichick. No, he's got all these strikes against him.
He's not coming back. Again, I think the NFL has a type, and that type is I stepped off the pages of GQ magazine and I had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay. That's it.
Okay, well, the guy who beat Sean McVay in a Super Bowl and he's stepping off with his model 24-year-old. The child bride. That
Jordan.
Doesn't count? Jordan.
No, she does not count, and he will not get another crack. He will not. Matt Eberflus will probably not get another crack. He's been relieved of his duties in Dallas. Mentioned Cliff Kingsbury in Washington. Also, their DC, Joe Witt, will not be returning. Vance Joseph, Broncos defensive coordinator, is going to interview with the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Giants, and the Titans this week.
That's having his time of his life there.
He forgot about that. It's crazy that he ended up back with the team that he was the head coach for, and it's worked. I mean, he's been a good defensive coordinator. I'm not going to sit here and say Vance Joseph is going to be a good head. It smells like Raheem Morris. You're going to bring back Vance Joseph, or you can bring back Brian Flores, and you're going to say, this is our guy because he has experience. And it's he has experience, but they didn't win anything. So what's going to be different this time around? How's it going to change? Can you really get somebody? I mean, this is the arrogance of the NFL. Oh, we can change him. It's going to be different this time. Is it? Is it really going to be different, or are people just who they are? It's interesting. The coaching carousel is in full circulation. It is rolling. And I think we're not done.
There's a topic, because every year there's a playoff team that fires a coach.
Yeah, I don't think we're done. And I don't know if it's Baltimore. I said yesterday, it doesn't feel to me that doesn't feel likely.
Are you surprised Tampa hasn't done anything?
Tampa's surprising to me. Miami is surprising to me. The idea that Mike McDaniel's I have a hand in the GM search. Really? because at times this season you couldn't formulate a sentence, but you're going to be actively involved in the head coaching search. Okay.
Mike McDaniel.
Mike McDaniel. That Mike McDaniel.
To win games, you have to win the game, not lose the game, honestly. And that is how you lose the game. You're moving the ball down the field. You're 1st and 10, and then you find yourself at 2nd and 20. That was critical.
To pick a GM, you've got to meet with the GM and pick a GM, and you can't have lunch with the GM and then not talk to the GM and pick the GM. That's critical. You have to have a meal with the GM and pick the GM.
We're having a good show so far. No, check that. Great show.
Why are we having a good show, Coach?
You should stand corrected. Good morning. False. Great morning. Let's go.
Why great? What makes this one great?
Because we're another day closer to death.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's still there. I'm surprised he's still in Miami. That one's surprising to me. Bowles is surprising to me, and McDaniel is surprising to me. But hey, maybe he is this ultra smart, charming guy, and he's just lost his way with the media. I don't know. I worry about his health. I feel like he sounds sick. He doesn't sound normal anymore. He sounds altered. We got to get to Mike Florio. I'm sorry. We got to get to Mike Leone, then Mike Florio. Mike Leone, Amerks head coach, joining us next. We'll talk to Michael F. Florio from NFL Network before 5 o'clock. And we have time for your calls during happy hour as well at 866-4FAN, 866-4326.
Bills back on the practice field tomorrow. Right now, they're a 1-point favorite over Jacksonville. No Maxwell Harrison for this game. Harrison week to week with the ankle injury. Sean McDermott talking about those Jags.
They do a great job of keeping you off balance. They got weapons in the backfield. They got weapons on the perimeter of their offense. Do a great job with the quarterback and moving the pocket. They run quite a bit of no huddle. Reminds me of early on when Goff was with Sean McVay. That's kind of where Coach comes from.
Coverage begins at 9 a.m. this Sunday here on The Fan. Sabres tonight hosting Vancouver. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. The Amherst on the road tomorrow night in Syracuse. Coming up next, we'll talk to head coach Mike Leone. Syracuse Orange basketball tonight. Looking for the first win of the calendar year. They play at Georgia Tech. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Amherst started their calendar year with a loss in Toronto. We'll talk to head coach Mike Leone about that and their next home matchup coming up here Friday night at Blue Cross Arena against Laval. But first, Happy New Year, Coach. We haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks, and a lot has changed in the organization over those last couple of weeks. How are you? How is the team? How has everybody been adjusting here to some of the changes, that are obviously out of your control, but a big part of what's going to be here for your success moving forward?
Yeah, it's you never want to see someone lose their job or multiple people. Obviously, Jason, hired me, but, things changed. They went in a new direction. Yarmo, made changes, but he's been really good. He's, he has a presence to him. He shares a lot of the same values of, what he looks for in players or how he wants our team to play. And we've had a really good working relationship. And then at the end of the day, the guys got to go play. The players don't really have it doesn't really affect them necessarily, but how they need to play, and everybody's being evaluated. All these players that were drafted or brought into the team were from the, previous management, and now it's an opportunity for guys to prove themselves, but also prove, that they're good players, and I think it's been really good so far.
Yeah, you've got a lot of things, objectives, win hockey here, but really ultimately it's about developing players and promoting them to Buffalo. So we just learned that Zach Jones getting the call up to the Sabres, and he's meant so much to your blue line this year. 2 goals, 28 assists, 30 points to lead the team. Coach, I would certainly think you would say that's well-deserved.
Yeah, he's been a really good part of our team, especially just, we've had a lot of huge pieces out of the lineup, not just for a small amount of time. When you look at, Dunner, Oslin, Metz, Carson Myers out, Komarov's out right now. I mean, there's been a lot of adversity this season, but the one mainstay back there has been Jonesy, and he's done a great job for us to help us produce, especially on the power play. If you look at our power play, I think we're a top 3 power play in the team. Both special teams have been good for us all year, and well deserving of him. And he's been great for us all year.
Mike, back to upper management for a second, because while we were clear that Jason Karmanos was the general manager of the Rochester Americans, I think there's a little bit of fog, and I'm curious if fans can get a little bit of clarity as to, how is the structure working out? Is it Yarmo overseeing all of it, with Bergevin having, his responsibilities focused on Buffalo and Flynn focusing on Rochester? Is Bergevin focused on Rochester? How does the power structure work now under Yarmo?
Yeah, actually right now, I got a call from, management, the decision when it was happening. So as of right now, myself have taken over, and, I work a lot with Mark Jakubowski as of right now. And I think it's, working with Yarmo, I have a lot of communication with him. We've built a really good relationship over the last 8 months. I think trust is a big thing with him. And, as of right now, I have the responsibility So just taking it day by day. And, until I think, there's a lot of other things I think is on his to-do list first. I think eventually, as partnership right now, working with him and then communicating with him and Mark Jakubowski. And then I think, as time goes on, I don't think there's a timetable for it. I think this is how it's going to operate as of right now.
The loss in Toronto, it comes down to the second period, right, Coach? Like your thoughts on how your team played this past weekend?
Well, I thought we played really well. Anytime you score 4 goals on the road, you can't give up 6. I think our goaltending could have, anytime you go on the road and you have 36 shots on net and you give up 25, especially after the first period, for sure we got to manage it better. I think it's an immaturity with our group. There's a lot of pieces that, the Dunners and Mets, not just on the ice, but in the locker room going into second periods. And, a lot of guys that are really young that, there's going to be some times where it's understanding how do you have to manage those games, how do you manage the shifts, and what you're willing to not give up to ultimately come out better in the second periods. You look at our first period, I think we're first in the league in goals scored. I think we're plus 18 in the first period. Second periods have been an issue. It definitely wasn't a, great second period, but when you score 4 goals on the road, you should find a way to get a point.
So it's funny. I think the last time we spoke, you talked about that second period, the importance of the second period and not falling asleep during the second period. And you also mentioned goaltending. And, well, Devin's got a good record, 11-6-4. I think we all kind of view this year's performance and hold it up against last year's performance and want a little bit more. What's been the difference between Devin's performance last year and this year? Is it a psychological thing? We know goalies are freaks. What exactly is it, Mike?
Yeah, I would say it's probably the consistency in his game. There's been really, really good games. We believe in him. He's a really good goalie. I think there's areas of his game he has to improve. I think when you look at second periods about, getting whistles at certain times and not rebounds in the slot, and you get a second, third opportunity, then they have the puck in the zone for 30 seconds. Those are game management, not just with our team, but also our goaltenders in areas where he can improve in those areas. And I think it's just finding consistency. And like I said before, I think it's good for players to go through adversity throughout the course of the season. Obviously, our lineup looks a lot different from what we had on paper at the start of the year. There's things that go into the second period if you don't have the puck as much. And we have guys playing the center position that have never played center position maybe in their whole life that are doing it at the pro level. It's difficult sometimes. And when you don't win faceoffs and you don't have the puck, there's areas of your game in the second period that, you have to, in the second period, it's all about, managing the game and taking risk out of your game and not hoping for offense. I mean, it's easier said than done. You have to ingrain it in your players that, we don't need another goal or we don't need to push for offense. And if you look at the best teams in the NHL, AHL, you got to keep doing the right thing over and over before eventually you break down teams. And that's an area for sure we have to get better in the second periods. You look at our first and thirds, we're really good. We've done a really good job, and I think we're 46-2-1 in the last 2 years. If we have a lead going to the third period, there's no issue there. But our second period's maturity, growth in our game, and definitely has to get better the second half of the year.
Mike Leone, Amerks head coach. Amerks home Friday night against Laval. Tomorrow night you'll be able to hear him on the Fan at Syracuse. Before we're talking about the week ahead here, Coach, just one question about the Sabres win streak. Very pleasant surprise that they could rattle 10 in a row. Do you guys feel that? I mean, it's one organization overall, but did that kind of lift your spirits in any way?
No, you like to see it, but I think it's with Yarmo's messaging too. I think it's great. You win a 10-game road trip, or 10-game streak, but you got to keep playing. I mean, if you stop the season now, you're out of the playoffs. I think when you have the mindset of just focusing on your next game, the next result, it was great for the organization. It's great to see the team work and compete and really defend well, close out games. It's great, but I think you just you just got to keep playing. I mean, you look at it now, you lose one game and you're 3 points out. It's the same thing with our division. It could turn overnight. Cleveland sweeps. We have a higher percentage than us. They're 1 point. A lot can change really quick. So I think it's good. You feel good. You have confidence in yourself. But I think if you sit there and look and you feel good about yourself and you're patting yourself on the back, you can get into real trouble. It's a hard league. You look at the Eastern Conference in the NHL, you're probably going to have to get to a 600 winning percentage. That's 6 out of 10 games you got to win, else you're probably not going to make it. So it's awesome. Everybody was really excited, happy. But I think it's, with Yarmo's messaging, it's just worry about the next one.
Talk about how tight the North Division is, Coach. I mean, the Amherst sitting in 4th right now, but you're only a few points behind your opponent on Wednesday night in Syracuse, and things can change quickly. Talk a little bit about the Crunch. It's a familiar opponent, obviously, going on the road and going into that hostile environment coming up here tomorrow night.
Yeah, they're a really good team. I'd have to say probably them and Laval are probably the 2 best teams in the league. You look at their underlying numbers; they're both 2 of the best defensive teams in the league. They're both score a lot of offenses. Their teams are built really well. They're healthy. They just played a Wilkes-Barre team and won 6-0 at home. They're a really good team. They're organized. They're hard to play against. They're big. They're heavy. So it'll be a big test for our group going to these last 2 games. And both teams are really, really good teams. It's probably since I've been here as far as how deep both rosters are right now with just the depth, the goaltending, the complete teams are 2 really good teams. Really good teams are well built, so it'll be a really, really good test for our group.
Mike, I got to ask you, what happened to your Detroit Lions this season? I didn't recognize that team turning the ball over at the end of the year.
Yeah, it was bad. It was tough. You can't give up 600 yards a game for 5 weeks in a row. That doesn't help. It was tough. I mean, everybody, you could say injuries, but everybody goes through injuries at that, especially at that, how violent of a sport it is. And you have to find ways to win. And when it mattered the most, they didn't find ways to win. And now, they ended up in last place in the division. Tough for sure.
Mike, can we stay in Michigan for a second and stay in the AHL? I know that you're not going to see these guys at any point this season unless it's down the road. Grand Rapids is 28-1 in the Central Division, an absolute wagon. In the AHL, in any professional league, how is that possible?
Really, really well-built team. You look at their team; they got eight guys on one-way contracts. 8 guys that you look at Gustafson and Hall. Those guys have played close to 1,000 games in the NHL, and they went with Young D up top, and then you have Ian Mitchell. He's played 250, and then you pretty much have 8 Dunners up front, like guys like Josh Dunn. I mean, if you have 8 of those, and then you mix in a couple first-round talent, and you obviously have to play well. You have to be well coached. You have to have good goaltending. But as far as a roster goes, I don't think I've seen a roster that good in the American Hockey League. And then you sprinkle in the 3 first-round pick forwards that they have, and then you have, Sheldon Dries has played 100 games in the NHL. Austin Watson has played, close to 200, 250 games in the NHL. You get John Leonard from Charlotte, who is, a top 5 player in the league, is playing NHL games. And then you have Dominic Shine, their captain, as a point-per-game player. The list goes on. They have more vets too that don't even play. It's just so, they set it up, and I know people in that organization, and they want to win, and they built the team the right way with also developing prospects, and hats off to them. It's I actually know their coach. I played for him in the East Coast Hockey League. He's a good man. He's a good coach, and credit to them. That's really hard to do.
3 games ahead this week, at Syracuse tomorrow, Laval, and then 3 o'clock puck drop in Belleville on Sunday. Do they not like NFL football in Belleville there, Coach? Yeah,
if you've been to Belleville, I don't know if they have TVs to watch football there, but it's a blue-collar place. That's arena. They made a coaching change. They're playing really well right now. Andrew Campbell has come in, has done a great job. New sense of urgency with the group. They're playing really good hockey right now. Even you look at Utica. Utica he goes into Laval. I know everybody looks at the record. They got a really good lineup and outshot Laval by 20 and won 4-3. It's a really hard division. And Utica's a team that, if you follow the NHL team, they had 8 guys out at one point. The New Jersey Devils. Now they got all those guys back. They have a really good roster. They have a good goaltending. So it's going to be, it's going to come down. It's going to be a grind the rest of the way for sure.
Coach, best of luck this weekend. Let's do it again next Tuesday. What do you say?
Sounds good. You guys have a good one.
Take care.
Coach.
There's Mike Leone, Rochester Americans head coach, with the stretch in front of his team here with Syracuse tomorrow night on the Fan Rochester. Back home Friday night against Laval before heading back on the road Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock, Belleville, the opponent. All of your Rochester Americans hockey action can be heard here on your proud home of Amherst Hockey, the Fan Rochester.
I think Belleville's local affiliates are actually Rochester, if I'm not mistaken. I've heard that, across the border. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Where they don't have TVs? Congratulate Belleville on internet access in the year 2026. It's great. Really appreciate how candid Coach is with us when he comes in here. He's loose, and we can kind of read between the lines and figure out, okay, here's how it feels like it's working within the organization and with all the changes and with goaltending. Back.
Levi was bad. He got pulled again, Danger.
Yep, that's right.
That was he number one reason why they lost in Toronto. And he was being diplomatic, but that's
Need a save.
I'm wondering where his head is at. And again, I go back to the report from the 2 guys that were on the Enforcers show, Andrew Peters being one of them. They would know that this kid, Levi, asked for a trade at the beginning of the season.
That's right. And I don't know. I mean, if you're interested in going somewhere else, you increase your value by playing really well. That's usually how it goes.
But when you're that age, you're maybe not in that mindset.
Yeah.
I don't know. But then goaltending is like golf sometimes. It comes and goes.
And with the release of Karmanos, along with Kevin Adams, just hearing that it's Mark Jakubowski and Mike Leone kind of running things here for the Amherst, just a little bit of clarity for fans. Hey, look, if things fall apart or, you have – we always want to assess blame. The coach gets a lot of that, but you also have to look at upper management. And it sounds like Jakubowski is getting a crack at working with Leone here and working through this roster and managing this team.
Can you cue John Sterling here as we have some breaking news?
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
The Bills have signed a kicker to their practice squad. This was the guy they didn't choose. They chose Badgley. It's now Matthew Wright. Matthew Wright to the practice squad, the team releasing offensive lineman Richard Garage. Interesting note here, the team also signing Maddox Trujillo to a future contract, which means, okay, he'll be a Fisher next year if he stays on the 90-man roster. So Wright came in as a free agent with the Steelers in 2019, and not a lot of the experience other than just kind of bouncing around from team to team to team.
Well, from a percentage standpoint, there's only one kicker that's out there that has a higher make percentage, and it's somebody that we've brought up, and every time we bring it up, everyone's like, I don't know about Justin Tucker. Matthew Wright, an 88% make rate.
Do you think the NFL has kind of a list like, no, we're not doing that. We're not.
I don't think anybody will ever admit that, but yes.
Yeah. I would think
yes.
like that would be one like, okay, you're blackballed here.
Right. Can you get something under the radar? Like the punt god signing in Kansas City was after all of the legal stuff kind of worked itself out.
Correct.
And you forgot about it because it was a punter in the preseason, and who even remembers Matt Ariza's dilemma, his legal troubles. This one is Justin Tucker, you could argue, is a Hall of Famer.
You could, but I would also argue this, Danger. It's week 19 in the NFL season now. And sure, you can look at video or maybe try him out. It's a little risky. At least you've been tracking this guy here for over a month and right. So it's a safer play with this kid, even though we really don't know much about him, in my opinion.
Well, I think he's gotten cracks, but he hasn't stuck. And this will be an opportunity if indeed Prater can't go. And I would actually just say don't even risk it. I mean, if there's even a chance that Prater's hurt or does to you what he did in Week 18, why? You just sign this guy to the practice squad, elevate him, get him out there, and let's see if he can perform in the clutch.
You can't go with Matt Prater. I don't even know why we're entertaining this.
That's right. Let's talk more Bills with our buddy Michael F. Florio. You see his work on NFL Network, does fantasy football for NFL Network, and he's also Bills Mafia, the sick podcast with Stevie Styles. Michael F. Florio next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger.
The thing that sticks out to me and I can't stop thinking about is the special teams. The kicking game for this outing is going to be tremendously important. The health of Matt Prater's at the premium for the Bills. And on the other side, their long snapper, punter, and kicker are all Pro Bowl caliber levels in Jacksonville. It's going to come down to a big moment, a big kick in this game. I just have a gut feeling about it. And it'll be fireworks, dude.
Former Bills center Mitch Morse, also former Jags center Mitch Morse, earlier today on One Bills Live, talking about special teams and the factor and the role that it will play in Sunday's Super Wildcard Weekend matchup in Jacksonville. We've just learned that the Buffalo Bills have signed Matthew Wright to their practice squad for a little reinforcement in the kicking game as we welcome in Michael F. Florio from NFL Network, also Bills Mafia in the Sick podcast with Steve Johnson. So no Matt Prater, no Max Hairston, a couple of injuries from Week 18, Mike, that we're looking into here with Jacksonville. And I'm curious, I mean, do you know much about Matthew Wright, or do you get the sense that this is kind of a journeyman guy that hasn't really been able to stick with any one team?
That is what I think Matt Wright is, right? Like he's bounced around the league a bit, but if you're unsigned this time of the year, that usually is an indication as to. And let's remember, he wasn't like the Bills' first pick because they needed an emergency kicker for a couple of weeks before Prater came back this week. So they're going a little bit deeper than I think they would like to, and you're asking a kicker who hasn't really been super active as of late, like kicking in actual games, to now suddenly come in and have to kick in the playoffs. I will say, though, to spin this into a positive, I'm hoping that this just leads to them being uber aggressive, right? Like, I don't want a playoff game coming down to the leg of a kicker that was signed 3 days before the game or 4 days before the game. Like, put the ball in your hands of your best players. Give Josh Allen and James Cook the opportunity to go for it on fourth down. Go for it on two at times. I understand, like, the game will dictate maybe if you kick an extra point or not or stuff, but I do think the Bills' mentality going in should be, we are going to be very, very aggressive when we have the ball.
I love it. Our guest here, Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, also the Sick podcast. Michael, you follow all the teams. So about that Jacksonville offense, you're Sean McDermott, Bobby Babich. What kind of game plan are you coming up with? Who are the guys that you really got to concern yourself with?
The issue is the Jags are suddenly pretty deep, right? For much of the season, they, especially after Travis Hunter got hurt, but even early on, they were slow-walking Travis Hunter, not really using him as a full-time offensive player. So it was kind of just Brian Thomas Jr. But as the season has gone on, we've seen Parker Washington break out. They traded for Jacoby Myers, who Sean McDermott clearly feels a certain way about that with some of the comments that he made, that was like a game-changing receiver that was available that the Jags got that the Bills didn't. But so they suddenly have three wide receivers that they could beat you with. Plus they have Brenton Strange, who has missed time this year, but especially since he's returned from injury, he has kind of become the safety blanket for Trevor Lawrence. He's not going to put up eye-popping stats, but if they need a third down or something like that, Strange is often someone they go to. But they also have Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers, who clearly has a lot of trust from Trevor Lawrence. And then in their backfield, you have Travis Etienne, who is more of a household name, I would say. He has looked like himself once again this year. But on top of that, they have a really explosive backup in Bashal Tutin, who is the kind of back that has given Bills a lot of issues this year. It's the speedy home run hitting backs that I tend to worry about more with the Bills, and Tutin is that guy. So the Jags have a lot of depth. They have a really good play caller in Liam Cohen, maybe coach of the year, but their weakness is the offensive line. So I feel like pretty much how I felt like the last 4 seasons, right? Like this defensive line needs to step up, and they need to be able to get pressure and create sacks when it matters most. The issue has been they haven't necessarily been doing that at a high rate this season.
Mike, when we talk about the wide receivers for this team, is Brandon Cooks wide receiver 1 going into this game? What do you do with, based on what we saw in Week 18 from the performance of Gabe Davis, Keon Coleman, and the lack of performance from Josh Palmer, who was out there against the Jets in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I think, look, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, or maybe I'm going to sound like Sean McDermott, but I think this is a big knock on Brandon Beane's record, right? Like, you handpicked Josh Palmer to be this team's wide receiver one, to be that outside field stretcher. And outside of that week one catch against the Ravens, I struggle to think of another moment where Josh Palmer really impacted the game. That being said, I think that their top three wide receiver sets should be Gabe Davis, Brandon Cooks, and Khalil Shakir. And you could have Palmer round out that bunch with Shavers. But to me, I think Brandon Cooks is the most important non-obvious Bill on offense, right? Like obviously if Allen or Cook don't play well, that hurts your chances more. But of the pass catchers, I think Brandon Cooks has to have a game, because the Jags are the best run defense in football, statistically at least. You could argue Seattle and some of these others, but they have allowed the fewest rushing yards to running backs this season. And what that has led to is them being the highest pass volume defense, right? Like, they don't allow the most yards, but no team has had – there's no defense has had an opposing team throw at a higher percentage than the Jaguars. It's 69% of plays against them this season have been pass plays. That's 2% more than any other team in the NFL, because they're so good at stopping the run. But they're tough on slot receivers as well. It's been out wide receivers, and especially downfield wide receivers, that have given them a lot of trouble. That is what Brandon Cooks is. And I know I joked when I came on here a couple weeks ago, like, he's getting open, but what good is it if he's not catching it? The fact that he is getting open downfield, I think should leave him on the field at all times in this game, because you need someone that makes the defense account for that. And if you can hit one or two downfield, then that starts to open up throws underneath for Kincaid and Shakir. It starts to open up some run lanes near the line of scrimmage. So I do think Brandon Cooks is vital in this game. And look, just like what they did with Keon Coleman, where they were like, look, it doesn't matter that we used basically a first-round pick on him last year. He hasn't earned the playing time. I think they need to look at Josh Palmer that way as well, because he's been getting snaps. He hasn't done anything with them.
Yeah. James Cook ends up being your NFL rushing king here, Michael, and that's great for him. How big a factor is he in this game going against that Jags run defense? Is it one of those situations where it might not work at first, but you just got to keep trying here?
Yeah, I think you have to keep trying. And someone on Twitter did a good job of pointing out to me that the Bills have faced some really tough run defenses this season. Like the Houston Texans is one, the Patriots are one, and they had success against those defenses. Now, I'm not saying Cook is going to go out there and run for $150 or something like that, but he is one of those runners that you keep feeding, because one or two plays by him could change the complete dynamic of this game. He is such an explosive home run hitting threat that you need. And I'd even raise it a bit. If you're struggling to get him going on the ground, start throwing him the ball more. That's one thing that they haven't done at a high rate this year. I know Ty Johnson is awesome, but you want to put the ball in James Cook's hands as often as you can, in my opinion, especially when you get into the playoffs now, to start using him in the pass game, run with him, give him the ball out in space. It's not a hot take here, but this team is going to go, in my opinion, as far as 17-4 could take them, because the rest of the roster, yes, there's still some very good players, and I know their pass defense rates very well and stuff, but this team, in my opinion, will go as far as 17-4 could take them.
Michael Florio from NFL Network joining us here on the Sports Bar, talking some Buffalo Bills as we reach happy hour. Mike, the coaching carousel is in full motion around the NFL. Do you think Joe Brady gets a look?
I do. I whether it's in the NFL or in college, because there seems to be a lot of rumors that college teams are very interested in him. It seems like he is going to get looks, which is funny, because the national perception of Joe Brady is like that he is a prime. I read an article the other day that had him rated as the number one coordinator that you could expect to get a head coaching job this year. But then you see Bills fans on Twitter and stuff being like, I want this guy gone. So I do think that is kind of funny. And there's some good openings, though, right? Like, you go to Tennessee and team up with Cam Ward. They have the most cap this year. They have all their picks. The Giants have something in Jackson Dart. And look, I know the Raiders are a dumpster fire, but they have the second most cap. They have a ton of draft picks, the number one pick included. So, like, there are some offenses out there with young quarterbacks that I think would like to get Joe Brady because he could establish the run and he's not going to put too much on the plate of his young signal caller.
Michael, like the fantasy season just kind of wrapped up here. Are you one that likes playing a little fantasy football? I've seen these pools here. Can you sell us a little bit on the postseason doing a draft like that?
Yeah, they're fun. Look, I'll start by saying don't ever expect to capture the joy that like regular season fantasy football brings, because that is number one for a reason. But it keeps you engaged. Look, everyone listening is going to be locked in Sunday at 10 a.m. But I'm sure or 10 a.m. for me, 1 p.m. for everyone on the East Coast. Yeah. But I'm sure you're going to be watching Eagles 49ers after that, and you're going to be watching Rams Panthers, and Monday night Houston Steelers, right? You want just a little skin in the game. You want to have a little fun, make it a little bit more interesting, give you something to root for that isn't your Buffalo Bills. And that is a good way of doing it. It's not my favorite. Like, I much prefer actual regular fantasy. But, hey, I'll take fantasy football in any iteration that we can get it.
What are you and Stevie working on in the Sick podcast this week that we can check out, Mike?
Yeah, we're going to have a live show Thursday at 6 p.m. Working on some guests right now, but we're breaking down everything for this Bills-Jags game. Stevie was texting me today. He's in the lab watching Jaguars games right now. He's saying that if the Bills could get pressure on Trevor Lawrence, they're going to be able to win. He's going to have ways that he thinks we could take out some of these wide receivers there, and then ways to attack that defense. So everything you're going to need from an X's and O's, a stat standpoint, and with me and Stevie and our guy Drew Buckets on the show, Mookie, you're always guaranteed to have some fun as well. So if you're not doing anything Thursday at 6 p.m., please tune in. You can head over to my Twitter account at Michael F. Florio, and we'll be live there. And if you missed it, on YouTube and anywhere you get pods after that.
Yeah, great stuff. Let's do this again next week after Bills win, do you think, Michael? Appreciate it, bud.
Of course. I do think they're going to win this game, but here's my take, guys, before I go. I think whoever wins this game wins the AFC.
Okay. Ooh. So this is like the championship game before the championship game. I like it, Mike. Appreciate the time, bud.
Thank you. Go Bills.
Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, stopping by the sports bar to share some takes on this weekend's big playoff game.
Hard to argue that, right? Because, all right, say if it's Jacksonville, well, then they're automatically going to, if New England wins, they go to New England. Yeah, they're beating New England, I would think.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, hard to say that there's a team in the AFC right now that's playing better than Jacksonville. They're the Houston, you could say. I didn't like how Houston kind of let Indianapolis hang around for a little bit.
They let the Raiders hang around.
Yeah. It's weird. For as much as Houston feels like they could be the boogeyman for the Buffalo Bills, like I think Houston can be had. Jacksonville doing what they did to Denver a couple of weeks ago was eye-opening. And they made Denver's vaunted defense look mortal. It's not going to be easy. We'll see. You'll be able to hear the action here on the Fan Rochester pregame coverage starting at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. Let's take a break. We'll come back. Happy hour is upon us. We have time for your calls at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We'll also be joined before 6 o'clock by RIT men's hockey coach Matt Thomas stopping by the sports bar. Stay with us.
You're listening. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Breaking news in the sports bar is the Baltimore Ravens have fired head coach John Harbaugh. Meanwhile, breaking news to Danger, too. That just came over. The Bills signed a kicker today. His name is Matthew Wright. He was in for a tryout a few weeks ago. Wright with an 88.2 field goal percentage during his time in the league. No Maxwell Harrison for this game. He's week to week. Bobby Babich has confidence in Trey White.
I feel like he's playing pretty well right now. I feel like he feels like he is himself again, which is really important. You know, it's hard to play pro football when you don't feel like you're fully back, especially at that position. You know, he's got stuff he's got to improve on, but I do feel like he's kind of getting into a rhythm.
Sabres hockey tonight against Vancouver. Our coverage will begin at 7 here on The Fan. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Welcome to Happy Hour. What the hell do I know? Oh, I've just been saying for the last 48 hours, Baltimore's, they're not going to get rid of John Harbaugh. That's not likely. It's more likely that nothing happens in Baltimore, and here we are as we have some breaking news to start us off.
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
Yeah, sure. We can talk about the Bills signing Matthew Wright as a kicker is added to their practice squad, but the breaking news is that John Harbaugh has been relieved of his duties as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool and join us in the sports bar. 585-8664-FAN. Also, RIT men's hockey coach Matt Thomas joining us before 6 o'clock. Gino,
wow,
I'm stunned by this. And if you're a fan of a team who's looking for a head coach, hard for me to imagine that you don't have John Harbaugh somewhere on your list, your wish list of candidates.
And then from Baltimore's standpoint, okay, what led to this? What was the relationship with Lamar and Harbaugh?
I think that's everything.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. If it was an ultimatum, it's him or it's me kind of thing, that's interesting to me. And Baltimore has been, kind of this organization I think a lot of NFL teams hold to a higher standard. Like, we want to be the consistent kind of team that Baltimore has been. I think Harbaugh's a hell of a coach. I mean, I saw just this season with no Lamar Jackson, Snoop Huntley comes in and wins games against the Bears and the Packers. Lamar, didn't cost them that game. Now, you could say you had timeout left at the end of the game. You were 44 yards away. You could have used that last play to get a little bit closer. You didn't. You kind of like positioned for the field goal, and you miss, costing you the division. And maybe we're having a different conversation if you make that decision in that moment. But, yeah, the root of this, I think, is that relationship between Lamar and the head coach. And in this situation, it seems like the Ravens are siding with their franchise quarterback.
It's a little surprising because if somebody gives you 18 years of service, usually you have kind of a nice little exit ramp. Like you're going to resign, this does not sound like that at all. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We've got Matt Thomas from RIT coming up a little bit later. We got time for your calls. We want to talk about this Bills game, too. Jesse in Rochester joining us here in the sports bar. We'll talk a little Bills. Hey, Jesse.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Doing well.
I was just wondering the variable conditions that are in Jacksonville, where it's kind of like that neutral as opposed to like Miami where you got the heat there and the lower humidity. Does that help the run game at all? And what's going to happen about that 1 p.m. start time?
Yeah, I love the one. Jesse, thanks for the call. I love the 1 p.m. start time, and I don't think if you had to take choose venues that are scary.
What will the barometric pressure mean
Yeah.
to James Cook's ability to rush for 100 yards on Sunday? Can we get an update on the percentage of precipitation? What are the chances? Jesse, I think when you see this team playing a monsoon the way they did a couple of weeks ago against Philadelphia, when you see them play in the snow the way they did earlier this year, I mean, dude, the conditions are going to be just fine.
Are you
January.
kidding me? It's going to feel awesome. Imagine if we just ended up imagine if you walked outside today, 66 and partly sunny. We'd be like, woo, yeah, no jackets, and be wearing some shorts. That's how Buffalo is. That's the weather you're going to be facing.
Yeah, I don't think the 1 o'clock start, I think, plays in the Bills' favor. I think that's something that Sean McDermott likes. I think it keeps them on schedule. It keeps them on routine. They like that time, that kickoff time. This is a test, right? This is a team that hasn't won playoff games on the road. Jacksonville has been tough for them in the past. The guy that they just signed to their practice squad was responsible for all 9 points in that game that they went down there, the Urban Meyer game.
You're kidding.
He was their kicker.
Ha!
He was their kicker. He's familiar
Good
with
little-
it. Familiar
good
with
little
it.
nugget there.
I wonder if he knows the barometric pressure at kickoff, if that's going to be a factor in his ability to kick field goals for the Buffalo Bills if he gets signed to the practice or if he gets signed to the active roster. Appreciate the call, Jesse.
Ooh, Harbaugh, he's a Giant, right?
If you're the Giants, again, I think Stefanski can kind of pick where he wants to go, but I would also say Harbaugh, I don't think he's getting a offer. I think he's getting multiple offers.
Stefanski is a Raven.
Ooh.
Stefanski with a real quarterback and some talent.
What if they had designs on making Monken the head coach? Because Monken is going to get some looks.
Okay.
Do you promote Monken? Monken doesn't have that swagger, that kind of what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But who knows? I'm kind of jarred by that, Gino. I really am. I didn't think that was going to happen. And certainly what you were saying, I think, rings true. In my head, I'm like, if that is going to happen, it's going to be presented in a way where it was mutual. Or, I mean, hell, even Cliff Kingsbury got the mutual agreement that I'm leaving Washington.
You would let emotions kind of quiet down after a disappointing season-ending loss. You would give it a couple weeks, and maybe you're doing work in the background there. Then, hey, I'm stepping away here, and that's my time. And maybe that was what they asked Harbaugh to do, and he didn't want any part of it. All right, well then you're gone. Thanks. Yeah, that's a little surprising the way this went down. 866-4FAN, 866-4326 is our number.
Yeah, you can absolutely join us. Boy, John Harbaugh out as the Ravens head coach, and they go in a different direction here after 18 seasons.
Brad in Rochester joining us on the Fan. Hey, Brad.
Hey, the biggest question I got is where is Jim Schwartz going to end up as a defensive coordinator out of Cleveland?
Yeah,
Where is he going to go? And I mean, I would love to have him in Buffalo taking over for Babich.
Yeah. Well,
but, I doubt that's going to happen.
I don't think that happens, Brad, because he was here with Rex, wasn't he?
He was here before Rex.
Before Rex,
and then Rex comes in and
has his
guys come in.
But I think to your question, where does Schwartz go? I think Schwartz maybe goes where Stefanski goes, right? Because the new head coach has to build a staff, and you build a staff with guys you're familiar with and guys you have a relationship with. And I don't know that there was any ill feelings towards those two guys in Cleveland working together.
You know what's funny? Like the heat that Brady gets, Babich doesn't get nearly enough because it's Sean McDermott's defense. And Sean McDermott, gosh, I would point to the injuries on defense. It's been a lot. Well, let's see if they get blown out in Jacksonville, and that's always a possibility. Boy, everything will be on the table. Thank you, Brad. 866-4FAN, 866-43.
The Ravens messed up. This is the Ravens maybe suffered from a case of Boehmiitis, where they held on to a guy so long that you saw enough of his assistants go on to do bigger things. Like Mike McDonald was on this staff 2 seasons ago. And Mike McDonald doing what he's done in Seattle.
Number one defense.
Now,
Number one
he
offense.
did the same thing as the defensive coordinator in Baltimore. He took over for a bad Ravens defense, got them top 10 within a season, got them number 1 within 2 seasons. Same pattern in Seattle. Took over a bad defense, got them top 10 in his first season, number 1 in his second season. He's in Seattle, and Ravens fans have to be wondering what could have been if we held on to that guy. Or maybe you're saying, if you're a Ravens fan, no, we need a guy that can communicate with Lamar. We need a guy that can get more out of Lamar, or get Lamar. With Lamar, I always wonder about his habits. Can we get Lamar more motivated and get him practicing during the week, keep him healthy, keep him upright? The talent is there, obviously. He's a 2-time MVP. But through the course of the last couple of seasons, didn't you just get the sense like Lamar feels inconsistent during the week?
Lamar's doing his own thing. Like, who wants to practice during the week? Like Allen Iverson thing. Like, I know everybody's kind of banged up, but it seems like Lamar has his Lamar rules, which, okay, you were the MVP, but you haven't won a Super Bowl yet, buddy. Stefanski makes sense in Baltimore, to me. That as far as guys with experience that can manage Lamar, who can manage a personality like that? It can't be like somebody cutting their teeth for the first time.
Stefanski has experience now managing Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson.
Right.
Yeah. Harbaugh in Vegas. What do you think of that? Now you have to go. You have the Harbaugh Bowl twice a season if you have Harbaugh landing with the Raiders. We would sign up for that.
Yeah.
The NFL loves them some narrative. You get a little Jim versus John twice a season with the Chargers and the Raiders. Well, that just made the carousel spin a little bit faster, didn't it?
Yeah, like guys like Brian Flores have to be like, damn it!
Yeah.
No!
The carousel is spinning to the point of motion sickness with the news that John Harbaugh and his time with the Baltimore Ravens has come to an end. We've got to take a break because we got shots coming up, and I want to make sure we have enough time for RIT men's hockey coach Matt Thomas, who's joining us here before 6 o'clock as well.
The Knicks are in a rut. They got hammered. We'll talk a little NBA. We'll talk about the Sabre game tonight. Can the Sabres get back on this? A commissioner in sports was fired today. No, it wasn't Gary Bettman. No, it wasn't one of the big four, but kind of a different change. And sports radio undergoing some changes here, Danger. We got a story about this out in New York.
Very good. A round of shots on the way. RIT men's hockey coach Matt Thomas on the way before 6 o'clock. Happy hour continues on the Fan.
After 18 seasons, John Harbaugh is out as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. Buffalo Bills adding a kicker to the practice squad today. He's Matthew Wright with an 88.2% field goal percentage in his time in the NFL. Sean McDermott talking about the opponent, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
They do a great job of keeping you off balance. They got weapons in the backfield. They got weapons on the perimeter of their offense. Do a great job with the quarterback and moving the pocket. They run quite a bit of no huddle. Reminds me of early on when Goff was with Sean McVay. That's kind of where Coach comes from.
Amerks defenseman Zach Jones gets the call up to Buffalo. Sabres hosting Vancouver. Our coverage will begin at 7 here on The Fan. Syracuse basketball looking to get their first ACC win of the season. They play at Georgia Tech. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Got a smart speaker at home? Listen to the sports leader, The Fan Rochester at home, by asking it to play 95.7 The Fan.
Round of shots on the way in the sports bar. Before we do that, and we get the breaking news of John Harbaugh being let go in Baltimore. Also, Matthew Wright, new Bills kicker, added to the practice squad. Do you want to play high-low on how many different stints he has had as a kicker in the NFL?
I'm going to put it at 7.
Higher.
9.
Higher.
Tell me.
20.
Wow. What? Okay, why does he keep getting passed over? I think the stat that you shared, wait a second, he was the kicker in the Urban Meyer game?
9-6.
Oh, if you love Narrative Street, all right. Yeah.
Gabe Davis going back. Gabe Davis revenge game. Matthew Wright revenge game. Started his career with the Steelers in 2019. Spent some time with, not making this up, the Tampa Bay Vipers. Not sure if that's UFL, arena football. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Back to the Steelers in 2020. Lions. Jags in 2021. Chiefs in 2022. Back to the Steelers in 22. Back to the Chiefs in 22. The Panthers. The Niners. The Falcons. The Patriots, the Panthers again, all in 2023. The Steelers again in 2024. The Niners in 2024. The Chiefs and the Titans also last year in 2024, last season. And this season, 2025, practice squad and offseason with the Panthers, the Titans earlier this year, the Commanders, and the Texans all this last season.
I know McDermott said that Prater is day-to-day, and I love the job that Prater did at age 41. You cannot go with Prater after what happened last week. I'm sorry. Wright will get elevated. But you're only allowed a couple elevations. That's the problem. So
I think it changes in the postseason. I think there's a different set of rules for elevations in the postseason.
I think you only get 2, though. So what I'm saying is you can elevate as many times as you want, but my point is, okay, it's going to be him and Dane Jackson, nobody else, right? That would be it. Interesting. Anybody wants to join us, do so now, 866-4326. The Canucks are the opponent tonight for Buffalo. They begin a 6-game road trip. They're season long. Not a break for the Sabres when you really want to get the team on the end of the trip, not the beginning. Regardless, Vancouver's not a good team. They're in last place in the Pacific. Only Winnipeg has fewer points in the league. One thing that is working for the Sabres, that's the penalty kill. They're second best in the league. Who knew? Coverage begins at 7 coming up.
Now, if the Sabres want me to remain excited, I know they just concluded their 10-game streak, but they lost to Columbus, a bad team. If they lose again to a bad team, then I'm going to say, same old Sabres. I don't care about the streak.
I love Mike Leone's answer where I just asked him. We haven't talked to him, right, over the holidays. Hey, the 10-game winning streak, did you guys feel any shine off that? Your one organization is like, yeah, no, it's, we're on to the next thing. It's great, but.
Well, I think you have to focus on the next result. You can't focus on the streak. The only thing they should be thinking about now is not, oh, we lost to Columbus. We should be thinking about, we need to beat Vancouver, and that's it. And I don't know that the players ever think about that. I mean, I'm sure they have more fun when they're on a streak, and you always hear out of locker rooms, never mess with a streak, right? But beat Vancouver. They're a bad team. If you want to be considered a playoff team, you should beat up on a bad team tonight in Vancouver.
At 27-9, the Detroit Pistons have the best record in the Eastern Conference. Only OKC better in the NBA. The Pistons with a statement win. They plowed over the Knicks. Pistons out-rebounding the Knicks 44-30. They shot from over 50% beyond the arc. 30-point win. It was the fourth straight loss for New York, so they've got some issues. 6 games in the NBA tonight. Doubleheader on NBC begins at 8. Lakers and Pelicans, followed by the Mavs and Kings.
Go ahead and hang the cup banner because you're not winning the title.
That's it.
Go ahead and hang it.
Yeah.
Hang it. You might as well do it now. Just say, we're going to have a celebration. Maybe we can end this funk that we're in. Hopefully we didn't peak at the NBA Cup, but hang the banner now because this is as good as it's going to get.
If that happens, if another team goes down this path, like the NBA Cup, they'll just do it like, no, we're not even going to try. What do we care?
Stupid.
College football, if all this news about the transfer portal has your head spinning, you're not alone. I'm just going to pick one, and I think this is the wildest story so far. Kenny Minchie, Notre Dame quarterback, goes into the portal, and on Sunday night, he tells ESPN, hey, I'm heading to Nebraska. Great news for Matt Rule and the Cornhuskers, except he goes into the portal, and now he's committed to Kentucky. No one is sure why Minchie flipped at the last
Maybe
second.
he got hammered and was clicking around on a website like many of us would do and didn't know what he was doing and somehow ended up in Kentucky instead of Nebraska, or he got him confused. I mean, I know that they're student athletes, but maybe the student part of it is getting lost a little bit more now that they're getting money for name, image, and likeness. Also, thank you to Greg, one of our regulars on X. You can reach out to us at the Fan Rochester for doing a morph on Sydney Sweeney and Carson Beck.
Oh, boy.
Sydney Sweeney looks like Carson Beck. Carson Beck looks like Sydney Sweeney. When you see it, you can't unsee it. And thank you, Greg, for the morph. We did not need the morph of the two faces merging together.
But he's thanking you for pointing that out to everybody.
You can't unsee it.
Yeah, I can't unsee it now.
He looks like him. He looks like her. And I give her a good chance this weekend. I give her a good chance. He's a pretty good quarterback.
Oh, yeah. NASCAR Commissioner Steve Phelps resigned today. This after...
Who?
Yeah, he was in the position for 1 year, this commissioner. He was in the sport for 20 years. The reason... Some of his texts were revealed.
Oh, boy.
In one exchange, the commissioner called Hall of Fame team owner Richard Childress a stupid redneck and needs to be taken out, back, and flogged.
Oh, no.
These texts came out during the discovery phase of an antitrust trial brought on by 2 race teams.
That will be the end of me. If not because of anything necessarily that I say, but because of who I associate with some of my text threads, we would be done.
I think,
I would be done. Not for anything. I personally, I think I've learned my lessons about, what you can do and how much trouble you can get online if you say or do the wrong thing, if you troll the wrong person. So I'm extra cautious and aware. Some of the friends I have in some of my text threads, not so much. And if calling somebody a stupid redneck is the thing that forces you to resign, jail time for some of the people I have in my life.
I thought that was one group we could still make fun of. Southerners, no?
No, you can't.
No.
Stupid redneck. Maybe it was the take them out back and flog them thing that was.
That could be the problem, yeah.
It was stupid redneck. Hell, that feels, in the world we live in now, that feels pretty innocent, actually.
A big change at WFAN in New York, Danger. No more sports updates. Peter Schwartz, who were here years with DA and then Maggie and Perloff sometimes, delivered the last one. Every update anchor would remind listeners after the updates at the top of every hour. Schwartz's sign-off on behalf of every update anchor in the history of WFAN. That's what's happening. I'm Peter Schwartz.
So it's interesting, right? Like, we still do the updates here during our show. I don't know if you hear them any other part of the day.
Just thinking, the reason we do that is just say, hey, we're local, we care. We might not talk about this segment about the Nighthawks or the Amherst or whoever, but we're going to tell you when they're playing, what's going on with the team there. We kind of move on. But I see this when I'm watching the NFL, Danger. Like, Fox doesn't do the scroll anymore. CBS's box very small. The world realizes you want to know the score, you just look it up in your phone or whatever you care about. Now, what I would say about the Fan or any sports station is, hey, if I'm on a long drive, I'm not looking at my phone. I kind of like those updates, to be honest.
So if you're driving in your car, the update still feels like it should be a part of the package.
Yeah. It's not intrusive to me. Yes, I might know that the Giants won earlier today, but you can have a different angle on that. You can update the score on some things. But they're smart down there. They've done studies on this.
Yeah, I get it. And that you're right. They don't make moves like this without having research to back it up. So there was probably a study commissioned by the radio station that, asked their hardcore listeners, is this something you desire? Is this something you want? Is this something you need?
I would imagine, too, that, like, for the Erica Hershkowitzes of the world there, like, they're all out of work, right? Mainly, or less hours? Saves on the payroll.
Yeah. One less mouth to feed. Well, that's interesting. This is something that you probably, if you're a sports talk consumer, and if you're listening to this show, chances are you maybe didn't even notice that sports updates are kind of fading into obscurity with a lot of the national shows. We'll have them here in the sports bar because, honestly, Gene is the king at the sports update.
But like if you said, Danger, you know what? We gotta get back, hop into it. I'm all about evolution. I'm not saying we should stick with it. But I'm saying the reason we do it.
No, the reasoning makes a lot of sense. But I also see the other side of it too, where I think their reasoning would be like, no, get right to it. Get right to what you're talking about. Why are we even talking about this? John Harbaugh just got fired, right? Like, we're going to spend all of our time talking about the ramifications of John Harbaugh and exploring all of the angles of John Harbaugh losing his job in Baltimore. But the update can set that up as well, and then you get into it. Well, that's interesting. You know what? Give us feedback on that if you want. You can reach out to us at the Fan Rochester. Love to hear about it. RIT men's hockey coach Matt Thomas going to stop by next at, the program, getting a win against Penn State. Nice.
There was not a single chant of "We Are," by the way.
No?
No, I'm not lying. Like, the Tigers gave him nothing to cheer about.
Good. I like that. All right, men's hockey coach Matt Thomas closing us up next here in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan.
Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
So, Danger, I didn't tell you this story. So, closing seconds, RIT Penn State, Tigers hanging on 1-0. And I want to give it a good call. Like, you just knocked off a top 10 team. So I'm working this up. Count it down, 3, 2, 1. And I give the punch. And the Tigers have knocked off Penn State. And with the punch, my fist goes into the monitor in front of me. Knocks it over. And then all of a sudden, this pain goes up my wrist. I'm like, oh, my God, what did I just do? And I'm on the air. And I'm like,
did you have a stroke on the air?
I
think you had a stroke
I didn't
on the
have
air.
a stroke. I'm Italian. I talk with my hands, and
it's a very
monitor.
Very menacing fist. In your social media profile, that menacing fist firing up a locker room full of peewees. I mean, you really do get into it, man.
I'm pleased to report it was just a bruise, and should not get that wound up. Joining us is the head coach, Matt Thomas. Matt, that was a night to remember, knocking off Penn State. How are you today?
Yeah, not bad. I'm actually on the road and on my way to Brantford, Ontario to watch some OJHL top prospect games. Do a little recruiting.
Wow, it never ends for you. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Got to grind, Matt. Your thoughts on the Penn State weekend? I mean, last non-conference weekend, your team showed up and didn't take it on Sunday. But your thoughts overall on splitting with a top 10 team?
Yeah, no, it was great. We played better on Sunday than we did on Saturday. But I think the difference in the game, I think we surprised Penn State with our physicality on Saturday, and that led to some frustration for them. They were there to answer the bell on Sunday, and it was a physical game, but we generated a lot more offensively. We were really, really unlucky. We hit a few posts. It was super tight. The game, at one point it was 3-1. Then we gave up a bad odd man rush, and they kind of got a bounce and scored off of a play, made it 4-1. We came right back, made it 4-2. We were pushing. It was good. It was a good weekend for us. I think it created some confidence for us, and it helped us grab another layer to our identity on what we know we're going to have to do if we're fortunate enough to be a team that can win our conference and go to the NCAA tournament. We know we're going to play a team built just like that, and we've got to figure out how to beat them. So it was a good lesson for us on Saturday.
Yeah, Tigers are home Friday and Saturday afternoon against Robert Morris, our guest, Matt Thomas, RIT men's hockey coach. One more thought, and this is kind of going forward. I mean, he was outstanding. Jakub Kurbacek, 44 saves in that win on Saturday night. But, Coach, it was just what do you say about the defense in front blocking all those shots as well?
Yeah, I thought our team played it exceptional. Our D did an incredible job off the rush. Like, that Penn State team is a really good team off the rush. They can make you pay. That was honestly the difference in the game on Sunday, is they just connected on a couple of those odd man rushes that they can create with their D can jump up and beat your forwards up the ice pretty quickly. They're a gifted skating team, but our D were awesome. They were awesome. The ending plays, in their face, making it really hard, and then the forechecking work by our forward group to kind of, create that gap between where they didn't have as many, extra guys in the rush where they could create the odd mans was exemplary. So a really important facet. We knew we would have to be really good in that area, and the guys definitely stepped up to the plate.
Yeah, one thing I like Atlantic hockey that I wish the NHL and others would adopt the 3-2-1 point system. So when I say, hey, you got a 6-point weekend against Robert Morris on the road in their place, but that was then, this is now. So you have a little bit of experience against this team. Tell us about this opponent you're going to be facing here.
Yeah, they were scrappy, man. They were hard to beat in their building, and I don't expect anything less. The one great thing about Atlantic hockey is every team is willing to put in the work in our conference each and every night, and it's not easy to get to the net in our league. Maybe it's easier playing Penn State because they'll cheat for offense a little bit more because they got a lot more players that are just wired that way, and we've got a lot in the Atlantic Hockey, we got a lot of guys that really dig in and play physical and go through your hands a lot more, and instead of poking and going and cheating for offense. So again, I think the way we played sets us up well to transition into conference play. We went up and played a war of a game in Clarkson, and then played 2 wars against Penn State. So we've got 3 really good, tough games under our belt post-Christmas, and we've got to make some hay in conference play here. So this is a really big month for us.
7:05 Friday night, and then 5:05 Saturday afternoon, Tigers and Robert Morris. So, Coach, busy month here, and appreciate your time today on the recruiting trail. Can't wait to see the next wave of Tigers that'll be coming in someday.
Yeah, hopefully we can snag some good ones. But, the staff is out there working hard. I'm dragging along today. I don't do as much recruiting as these guys, but looking forward to getting in here and seeing some of the up-and-comers in Ontario.
Matt, thanks a lot. We'll see you Friday.
All right, all the best. Thanks, guys.
There he is, RIT men's hockey coach Matt Thomas. Will add him to the club of our team looked better in a losing effort.
You came up with this a long time ago.
It's an observation.
It's a hockey thing.
Yeah, it's an observation.
I will say this. I respectfully disagree. I don't want to. He's the coach. He would know way better, but you beat Penn State. You shut them out.
Right. But we looked better what was the score of the
7-3?
Yeah, we looked better in the 7-3 game. We just didn't get any bounces. We were unlucky. We looked better in that game than the game that we actually won. Maybe it is a hockey thing. It's a positive thing. It's a mental thing. It's something you tell yourself or you tell your guys so that they don't get down when they lose by 4 goals. But it is a hockey coach thing. I don't know. We picked up on it with Leone. We hear it a lot from coaches. We'll add Coach Thomas to the list on that. Thanks for joining us there, RIT men's hockey coach. Some action against Robert Morris this weekend. If you missed Mike Leone, Amherst head coach, if you missed Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard, you can find those conversations wherever you get your shows. Search out the Sports Bar on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, your favorite platforms. You can also find us on YouTube, our channel, The Fan Rochester. Our shows all posted for you there as we stream live every afternoon. Like and subscribe, and you'll always know when the Sports Bar is open for business. Bet MGM tonight with the big noise on the way next. Have a great night. The Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the